We're going to be discussing something here that I've been talking about for a while, and it also runs in conjunction with a number of other items and topics and issues that I've addressed here before. There's been a court ruling on the Indian court, as a matter of fact, for the Creek Nation. Their Supreme Court has ruled that the black descendants within the nation are recognized as members of the tribe now. Never seen anybody dispute the white members of their nation. That never occurred, but all of this converges on several different things we talked about. And I want to put all this together in its proper context and in focus to reparations. There are a number of different articles that I could read in this regard, but I think the one that really puts it most succinctly is from The Guardian, ironically enough, because you don't have news in America outside of us. Just varying flavors of propaganda. I want to walk through this, and it's going to tie together a lot of things before we're done here tonight, including reviewing some things that we talked about here before. So get out your pencils and your notepads for those of you who need a refresher. It talks about the Muskogee Court affirms citizenship for descendants of people enslaved by the tribe, although this is not all really accurate here because it goes well beyond that. So the article doesn't really put this in its proper context, but don't worry, you have me for that. It says here in the subheadline, the Muskogee Creek Nation had earlier argued that only lineal descendants of tribe qualified for citizenship. In a landmark decision, the Muskogee Creek Nation Supreme Court ruled that Rhonda Grayson and Jeffrey Kennedy, two descendants of people who were once enslaved by the tribe, are entitled to tribal citizenship. This is Miss Grayson and Mr. Kennedy, respectively. The court ruled on Wednesday that the Muskogee Nation Citizenship Board violated an 1866 treaty in denying Grayson and Kennedy's 2019 application for enrollment. At the time, the Citizenship Board argued that the descendants should be denied because they could not identify lineal descendants of the tribe. Grayson, who is the founder and director of the Oklahoma Indian Territory Museum of Black Creek Freedmen History, and Kennedy are descendants of the Creek Freedmen, people who were enslaved by the Muskogee Nation. Now, that sentence right there, folks, that one can be confusing and misleading, especially when they start characterizing it certain ways. We'll come back to that one, but remember that sentence, people who were enslaved by the Muskogee Nation. They can trace their lineage back to people who are on the Dawes Rolls. Let me stop here for a moment. Over a decade ago, because Bob Johnson and TV1 and Byron Allen and Tom Joyner and none of these treacherous old fossils from the dead black media, they did not discuss the Dawes Roll. Most of you only got introduced to the concept of the Dawes Roll after Dr. Claude Anderson made you aware of it. That was the first time. Where were your so-called black journalists, National Association of Black Journalists, where were they to put the Dawes Roll in its proper context? Where were all of them? Where was BET? Where were any of them to say that? Why is it that it took Tariq Nasheed in a documentary and Dr. Claude Anderson? Why is it that was the first time that the masses, to any real measurable extent, got introduced to that? Why is that? Where the hell was Tom Joyner and the rest of them to speak on that? Oh, they didn't want to say anything because, you see, they were all buck dancing and ass kissing for white advertisers, and many of them still are. And they didn't want to have to go into the extent of when you start talking about the Dawes Rolls, you got to start talking about the white folk who bought their way onto it. And you didn't want to have to discuss that because, that might mess up some of that desperate ass-kissing money that they were chasing. Now, over a decade later, here come major publications now discussing the Dawes Rolls. Finally saying that phrase, a phrase that really, unless you went to go see maybe a documentary by Ken Burns, maybe you've seen a PBS documentary from Ken Burns, maybe you encountered it by accident there, but it certainly wasn't the old dead black media who was beating the drum and making sure that people understood what this was. And so now, over a decade or so later, now you're seeing that they're no longer pretending the Dawes Rolls don't exist. Now, all of a sudden, this isn't a conspiracy theory, and this isn't Hotepism, and this isn't Afrocentrism. Now this is a historical fact. Now that a white publication says it, oh, now this is actually a historical fact now. Oh, the Dawes Roll is actually a real thing. Interesting. It was a real damn thing decades ago when we first started talking about it. It was a real thing then too. So just be careful when you have these old butt dancing media people who they sit up here and don't say anything about these things. First of all, half of them don't know, but if they do know, they collaborate with the dominant society not to discuss it because they're interested in getting individual personal benefits for themselves, not for the group. They want to do what's best for them, not what's best for us. So they collaborate with these white media outlets and the white government to handcuff and handicap the rest of us. It says they can trace their lineage back to people who are on the Dawes Rolls, a list that identifies people from the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee, also known as Creek, and Seminole tribes. Grayson's and Kennedy's ancestors are also listed on the Freedmen roll, but not the Muskogee roll. This discrepancy is how the Tribal Citizenship Board previously justified denying Grayson's and Kennedy's applications for enrollment. Did you get that there? They could trace their lineage back to the Dawes Rolls, to the Freedmen rolls, well, but not the Muskogee roll. Oh, there's a new roll that very conveniently you ain't on. Isn't that interesting? They go on to say, however, the court ruled unanimously. This is called validation. The court unanimously ruled this week that such a decision was in violation of the Muskogee Nation's laws. Quote, are we, as a nation, bound to treaty promises made so many years ago, the court wrote. Today we answer in the affirmative that this is what Muskogee law demands. According to the ruling, any future applicant who can trace their ancestry to someone on either roll. If you can trace your ancestry to someone who is on either of these rolls, you'll be eligible for enrollment. The decision comes after the Muskogee Nation Attorney General, Jerry Wisner, appealed a 2023 ruling by District Judge Danette Mauser in favor of Grayson and Kennedy. A sordid history. Now, this is the part I want you to keep in mind. And the reason I'm bringing this up here is that, by the way, I've got a number of different articles. I just couldn't help but notice some of the names I see. I've come across the names Hernandez. I've come across the names Feldman. I've come across a lot of names that don't sound like typical traditional Native Americans, and yet nobody is questioning them. I just couldn't help but notice I've come across a number of different names. Hernandez is in there in Florida. For the Seminoles, there's a fella, one of the Indian casinos, finance director named Hernandez. He's in the tribe. So I just couldn't help but notice, I see a bunch of names. I'm like, okay, that's not a traditional Native American name by any stretch of the imagination. And yet nobody's questioning your credentials. So I just thought the reason why I'm pointing out is that, by the way, no shade on anybody, but I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a traditional Native American name if I ever came across one. All right, now I want to go to this next part right here, and this draws back for anybody who has been listening to me for the last 2 decades now. This all ties back together. You didn't hear it from anybody before I said it then. I put together the chronology for you, and it's important that we come back and review this. And tonight we can. They're going to say assorted history. Until an 1866 treaty with the U.S. government, which addressed the status of people of African descent who lived among the southeastern indigenous nations. Now, this is misleading. This is misleading. Now, I don't know if the Guardian did this deliberately or not, just because they're based out of another country, but this is misleading to state this like this. The status of people of African descent who lived among the southeastern indigenous nations. That is misleading, hideously misleading to say it like that. The Muscogee Nation, along with the 4 other southeastern tribes in Oklahoma, enslaved black people. Now, that's a little more on the nose, because remember, we are indigenous people.
And deal with it.
That's the issue there. This is not about, quote, people of African descent and, oh, these were slaves in white societies, so you became slaves among the Indians. Actually, no, they were grabbing black folk who were already part of the tribe. Well, if the white folks say we can enslave black folk, guess what? The black folk in the tribe, we just found a brand new group of folks to victimize. That's what occurred. And so you see, even the Guardian struggles to recognize this, because once you say that there was a black presence in America that predates Columbus, that predates the Europeans, well, then you can't claim any manifest destiny. You can't claim any of that. And you have to acknowledge us as the indigenous people, not simply the so-called red Native Americans. Now you have to, things just got way, way, way stickier. So they are still trying to deny it and still trying to massage the language to give the impression that that's not what it really is. You'll still have some people today trying to deny it, but now they're having to break down, slowly but surely break down and say, actually, the Europeans did not introduce the black presence in North America, Central America, and South America. Not in North America or Canada or Mexico or Central America, nor South America. The Europeans didn't sit up here and, whoa, y'all couldn't cross that ocean without us. And if you have to concede that point, then you basically have knocked down a domino that knocks down all the others. Now you have to start conceding a bunch of other things that are incredibly inconvenient. If you thought you could just hide behind chattel slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, you got another thought coming. The so-called 5 civilized tribes engaged in slavery, but not simply of buying slaves that had been gotten from the Europeans, but also from the black members of their tribe. And this article does not make that clear. Now, I don't know if that is deliberate obfuscation. Look it up. I don't know if that's a deliberate attempt to confuse it, but it is inexcusable. It is beyond damn time that we put all of this in very clear, concise context. They didn't just grab some black folk who had been previously enslaved by the Europeans. Okay, now we enslaving you. No, it's black members of the tribe that they turned on. And you haven't seen a documentary yet that puts that in its proper context, have you? That they turned on black members of the tribe and said, you know what? Yeah, we got a new way to get over. Oh, but then again, your white media outlets, they have an incentive not to clarify that either now, don't they? Your so-called sophisticated multinational, multi-billion-dollar white media outlets, why is it they're being so cagey about this? Oh, because they have a vested interest in confusing it too. They have a reason not to say it clearly. Because there's a whole bunch of folks who got a bill sitting due. And all of them know that, by the way, if you untangle that and say it clearly, it becomes obvious, oh, hell, you owe something, don't you? It says here, with the abolition of slavery laid out in the treaty, the nation granted citizenship to the people it had once enslaved. Many of those who were enslaved by indigenous nations were also forced to participate in the Trail of Tears. People, you're in the Trail of Tears. You're not some former slave of some Europeans in the Trail of Tears. You are an indigenous Native American if you being marched west with the rest of them on the Trail of Tears. You didn't get to say, wait, I used to be a slave of the white folks here in Alabama. I need to stay here. No, nigga, you's a Native American. Get your ass on this trail with the rest of your people. This is not Jason Black saying that you are indigenous people. You are enslaved. You are indigenous people enslaved by the indigenous within the indigenous nations. This article's paragraph does not make that clear. And with that confusion, they can just claim, oh, you some Africans trying to bootstrap yourself on to the real Native Americans. That's the reason I'm hammering this. If you do not make it clear that these were already indigenous people, then you get somebody saying, oh, y'all weren't indigenous people. You're just some African slaves trying to bootstrap yourself onto us. Just like in Jewish society, oh, you're not the real Jews. You're just some Africans trying to bootstrap yourself onto Jewish society. So recognize where there's a number of folks, both in North America and around the world, who have been on in the words of Dr. John Henry Clarke, centuries-long crusade to dispossess us and say that we are not a part of this nation or this group, when in reality, they are the newcomers. Oh, I said that. In reality, they are the newcomers. Many of those who were enslaved by indigenous nations were also forced to participate in the Trail of Tears, named for the suffering and death that thousands of indigenous people and the black people among them. You see what I mean there? The suffering and death that thousands of indigenous people and the black people among them. So this is why I keep hammering this, because this article keeps distinguishing the black from the indigenous people. And that's how you got in this mess, is by folks taking the black members of the indigenous people and saying, oh, that's not really you. And then replacing them with either red or worse Europeans claiming to be the indigenous people, and nobody is questioning the credentials of the Europeans who carpetbagged and bought their way onto the Dawes Roll. No one's doing their paperwork, but even in this article, they keep trying to make that distinction, a phony, false lie distinction, and keep claiming there's some difference. Yes, I'm going to keep beating it. Jason, how many times are you going to say I'm going to keep saying it? These are folks here. No, they're not. Well, these are not white folk from America, but you see they're on the same thing. This isn't even their history over there, but they're making sure to toe that line. So when we say white supremacy is global and they recognize the little things that they've done in these separate nations, and they're going to make sure they stick by the story, this is what I mean. The indigenous people and the black people who were indigenous among them experienced when the U.S. removed them from their lands to facilitate the expansion of settlers. The Trail of Tears is considered to have been an act of genocide, you think? In Mauser's decision, she acknowledged the shared history of freedmen and the people who enslaved them, noting that the enslaved people often spoke the tribal language and participated in ceremonies. Yeah, because they were the indigenous people. Do you notice how she does not make it clear that these are the indigenous people? This article keeps trying to make it seem like, yeah, y'all freedmen folk are some other. Quote, the families later known as Creek Freedmen likewise walked the Trail of Tears alongside the tribal clans and fought to protect the new homeland upon arrival in Indian territory, she wrote. We had been fighting it. During that time, the freedmen families played significant roles in tribal government, including as tribal town leaders in the House of Kings and House of Warriors. Now, I want you all to pay careful attention to what I'm going to say next. What I'm going to say next is going to be very important. It's going to be a callback to things that you have heard me talk about before. If you want to know what the fight is over, if you want to know what the resistance is over, if you want to know what the animosity is really over, especially because they started doing this stuff later in the 20th century, after all of this should have been settled decades and decades earlier. If you want to know what it was about, this next part right here brings it all into focus, and you'll notice that it's very reminiscent of what I told you about before years ago. It says, but almost a century later, the relationship became more fraught. In 1979, the Muscogee Nation adopted a constitution. They made a new constitution that restricted membership to only those who could identify themselves as descendants of people listed as, quote, Muscogee Creek Indians by blood on the Dawes Rolls. Today, the Cherokee Nation and the Seminole Nation grant citizenship to people who were enslaved by members of the tribe, though citizenship in the latter nation is not entirely equal. The freedmen citizens in the Seminole Nation cannot run for higher office or access tribal housing or education assistance. In the fight for enrollment and citizenship, freedmen groups across the 5 nations have been created. Quote, while this victory honors our past, it also offers a meaningful opportunity for healing and reconciliation, said Grayson in a statement to the Associated Press. It's time now to come together, rebuild trust, and move forward as one united nation, ensuring future generations never again face exclusion or erasure. Now, let me go back here. You saw all this that happened here before, all this with the treaties. These folk know what the hell they did in the Indian nations. They know what they did. So why is it that none of this was really a point of contention or a point of conflict until about a century later? What was it that happened almost a century later? Take a look on your screens. This is what happened.
Damn!
This is what happened almost a century later. I did not bring receipts. I brought invoices. I did not tell you what you paid. I tell you what you owe. For those of you who have followed me now going on almost 2 decades, you remember I already did the chronology of this before, and I said about those Native American casinos, which, by the way, there were a bunch of white organizations and white backers of various ethnic backgrounds who they were basically using the Native Americans as the front and been using them as the front. They're the backers behind the scenes, and they've been using the Native Americans because they're the casinos, for the most part, as the business, not the employees, but the business of the casinos is not subject to taxes. Look it up for yourselves. Don't believe me. But the entity is not subject to taxes. The people, employees, but the entity, if owned by the nation, is not subject to taxes. So there's a bunch of white folk of various backgrounds who found a way. Hey, if we back this thing here, y'all put us on the paper for it here. Your names are out front. Your credentials as Native Americans are going to exempt everybody from the taxes, and we'll be on the back end. But if you take a look at the article here on your screen from casino.org, I made sure I brought my invoices. The first Indigenous owned casino, owned in quotations, was opened in December of 1979 by the Seminole tribe in Florida. Hello, Ron DeSantis. Oh, well, what do you know? Oh, I'm sure this is all just one big, huge coincidence, right? That in 1979, now remember, the move to get the casinos open actually started before 79. So you're actually talking about closer to 1976 when everybody knew what they were going to be pushing for and what was coming. But by the time we get to 1979, all of a sudden, the 5 civilized tribes start this big push and this big effort to say, by the way, ain't no niggas part of this. Right around 1979, you start seeing a push by the so-called Native American tribes to start excluding the black members. To say, oh, you're being expelled. Yeah, you've been in all this time, but new constitution, you're not actually members of the tribe anymore. But the Treaty of 1866, yeah, we're making a new treaty here. We're making a new constitution. Yeah, you're out. You're out. This is not conspiracy theory, people. This is just history. Please tell me why BET and the rest of these people never put this in its proper focus. Why is it that none of these other media outlets ever put this in its proper focus for you? Why is it the first time that most of you are hearing this was sitting right here from my microphone? Why is it these other outlets of your so-called HBCU graduates and PhDs and media people and National Association of Black Journalists, why is it they never put the chronology together for you like this? Because when you say it just like this, and it didn't take me 15 hours of doing it, it really just took me 60 seconds, but I wanted to read the article there first. It only takes about 60 seconds to show you exactly those 2 dates where they converge, and then all of a sudden it all becomes clear to you. Well, I'll be damned. As soon as the white folks said we're going to make this set aside for the Native Americans here, of course, to enrich a bunch of white folk behind the scenes, but as soon as this started becoming a thing to circumvent casino laws, all of a sudden, everybody said, by the way, we cannot have this enterprise unless we target the freedmen. Everything is when everybody starts talking about dividing up money, when they start talking about money, whenever they start talking about distributing money, the conversation always turns to, now what are we going to do to make sure we exclude them niggas? We're not even in the room. We're not even around. We're not hurting anybody. We're not disinheriting anyone. We're not inconveniencing anybody. But the conversation always is like, wait a minute, the business is not complete nor concluded until we have solidified how we going to exclude them niggas. The meeting is not adjourned until it has been made solidly concrete clear how we're going to exclude them. Not Asians, not Asians, not Latinos, and certainly not Anglos. Every conversation always turns to, by the way, how are we going to hurt them black folk with it? How are we going to do them in? How are we going to hurt them? How are we going to handicap them? How can we use this to target and harm them? Every discussion includes that element. How can we use this to harm specifically just them? And it's essential that you be given this information like this, because you're not going to get it from the white corporate media outlets, the white media outlets, the old dead black media, buck dancing folk out there. You're not hearing any of them put these dates together without this. You can read all these articles you want to and listen to all the interviews you want to, but if you don't have this date right here, you don't understand what this is all really about. And now that I've said it like this, now you all are starting to piece together in your own heads, by the way, there's ramifications of this. Wait a minute now, this means that there's a bunch of folks who owe something. Yeah. And not because of what happened in 1866, but because of what you've been doing since 1976. What? Oh, so the meter on that bill is still running. Oh, so the ticker on that receipt is still running. It hasn't stopped yet. What? There's another debt that's still sitting up here accruing interest as we speak. You're still accruing penalties as we speak. No wonder you didn't want to put this in its proper context. Folks, when I discuss reparations and I say reparations across the board, in the chat room, you got it. When I coined the phrase reparations across the board, there's a whole bunch of hidden areas in here that folks don't want to tell the whole history of, nor what they've been doing, because then you realize, oh, wait a minute, you're trying to hide your debt. Oh, this was a big cover up and a big scam to hide your debt, to hide what you owe. Yes, sir. That's exactly what it is. But I want to go a little bit further because I want to put this into its proper context for you all. Oh, people, I did not bring receipts. I brought invoices. The 720 degrees of analysis you receive absolutely nowhere else. Let me go to departmentoftheinterior.gov. You damn right. Jason Black is prosecuting the case. The Oklahoma Tribes Reconstruction Treaty. Damn, they don't want us to go doing this. People, if all you do is watch YouTube videos, you're not going to get anything. You got to go do some reading. Select provisions of the 1866 Reconstruction Treaties between the United States and Oklahoma tribes. You can see some of that right there. This is dated from July of 2022. I'm going to go down here just a little bit. And it says, it is important to understand. Well, let me go back up to the background part of it. The history of the five tribes is shaped in steep sorrow. Yeah, cut the check. Each of the five tribes had citizens that enslaved people. Each of the five tribes had citizens that enslaved people and enacted laws supporting enslavement and or restricting the rights of enslaved people. Once again, to remind you, if you do not include the fact that the people that they were enslaving were indigenous members of their own tribe, that says something. Those laws are no longer in effect today. In 1866, following the Civil War, each of the 5 tribes entered into treaties with the United States containing provisions addressing the status and rights of freed slaves and persons of African descent residing among the 5 tribes. This is the United States federal government. You notice that the way they're saying this here is different than the way in which they were categorizing this over there in The Guardian, but both of them are still playing fast and loose with the language. And neither of them wants to make it crystal clear that the enslaved people that they keep referring to were indigenous members of the tribe. They did not become members of the tribe after the Europeans showed up. These were people who were members of the tribe way before the Europeans showed up. When the Europeans showed up with their transatlantic slavery, the 5 civilized tribes working together with them targeted the black indigenous members, along with any others from the transatlantic slave trade that they could grab. If you don't put that in its proper perspective, you get trick bag talk language like this, that if you don't know any better, you'll never argue that, hey, this is not correct. You're not making this clear. You're missing the word indigenous. You're acting as if the indigenous people were different from the black ones, that you couldn't be black and indigenous. They never say that you're black and indigenous. And that's deliberately done so. Where there's some people who they were not indigenous people, but they ended up being taken as slaves, bought as slaves from the transatlantic slave trade. Yes, there were plenty of those too, but they were not the only ones. So confusing you is key. And don't expect the old dead black media to clarify this for you. They say it is important to understand that there is no single or uniform law or treaty that applies to all freedmen. The freedmen provisions in each of the 1866 treaties differed in important respects. So they're letting you know, by the way, the trick bag language, people, when they put in the trick bag language with the Civil Rights Acts of the 1960s and then immediately followed that with the Immigration Acts, just understand that's not accidental. If they were going to concede something, they always made sure they put something in to allow them to have wiggle room to refute everything they just said they were going to do. So you're going to have to fight hard to nail them down to get them to stop trying to use their loopholes and trick bag language. But that's why even in 1866, by the way, let's make sure we leave ourselves room to get out of this or interpret it however we want to. People, laws can actually be nailed down very, very specifically. The reason why laws are deliberately written in vague language is so that they can be later left open to interpretation. If you make it very black and white, cut and dry, clear during legislation, then you rob them of the ability to get out of what they just said later. So they make these laws vague so that they can come back and have a court interpret the law however they want to, ex post facto, after the fact. The law's been passed, then they come back and tell you, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't mean what you think it means. But the legislature said, the governor said, yeah, but we just ran it by the court, and the court says that this is what it's going to be. The court says that. So recognize exactly what they use. Recognize exactly what the mechanism they use, and it's not new. It's not new. Not at all. The treaty with the Seminole, March 21st, 1866. Article 2 of the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma's 1866 treaty provides the quote, "Inasmuch as there are among the Seminoles many people of African descent and blood, Do you notice they didn't just say African descent? Didn't you already clarify? No, African descent and blood. What they mean is, oh, the blood, you're the black folk. You're the black ones. It is stipulated that hereafter these persons and their descendants shall have and enjoy all the rights of native citizens, and the laws of said nation shall be equally binding upon all persons of whatever race or color, who may be adopted as citizens or members of said tribe. Do you see how much they're tying themselves in knots to try to make this work? People, when you are an honest individual dealing in good faith, you don't have to use a whole bunch of spaghetti language. You don't have to do that. You only use spaghetti language if there is something that you're trying to get out of. That's the only time that occurs, is if you're trying to say something that you want to get out of and trying to reserve yourself room to get out of it later. It doesn't require all of this. It's never required all of this. It doesn't require it today, and it didn't require it back then. They saw this day coming, folks. And they've been trying to deny it ever since. That's the issue. I'm going through this in withering detail because I want you to understand exactly how that works. I want you to understand exactly how that works. In the chat room here, I'm going to go ahead and throw up the Zoom link. This is only for Sagittarius. He has 2 minutes to be on Zoom or permanent vacation. So, we're going to go ahead and get them up on Zoom. They got 2 minutes to be on Zoom or permanent vacation. Let's go ahead and get back over here to what the Department of the Interior said, that the treaty with the Choctaw and Chickasaw. Under that treaty, in Article 3, the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations ceded certain lands in exchange for the sum of $300,000, which the United States was to hold in trust until the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations enacted, quote, such laws, rules, and regulations as may be necessary to give all persons of African descent resident in the said nation at the date of the Treaty of Fort Smith and their descendants heretofore held in slavery among said nations all the rights, privileges, and immunities, including the right of suffrage of citizens of said nation. Treaty with the Creeks. Article 2 of the Muscogee Creek Nations 1866 treaty provides that, quote, inasmuch as there are among the Creeks many persons of African descent, these persons and their descendants shall have and enjoy all the rights and privileges of native citizens, including an equal interest in the soil and national funds, and the laws of the said nation shall be equally binding upon and give equal protection to all such persons, and all others of whatever race or color who may be adopted as citizens or members of said tribe. Very interesting when they say whatever race or color, but the only people whose legitimacy has been questioned were the black ones. So this doesn't mean anything because the only folk you've been questioning were the black ones. The only ones you've denied were the black ones. Treaty with the Cherokee. Article 9 of the Cherokee Nations 1866 treaty provides that, quote, all freedmen who have been liberated, as well as all free colored persons who were in the country at the commencement of the rebellion and their descendants shall have all the rights of native Cherokees. They're not giving you some handout or giving you some special dispensation. What they're doing is acknowledging that, yeah, we enslaved the black members of the tribe, and we're now saying that we're officially undoing that. That was the official thing, but of course, right after that, they said, yeah, damn that treaty. We run the tables now. Damn that treaty. Although that creates a sticky situation because you see when these tribes try to go to the United States government and wave around treaties, very interesting when they try to wave around treaties. Well, you can't wave around those treaties if your treaties don't matter. So if your treaty doesn't matter with us, then your treaty doesn't matter with the U.S. government either. So do you all see this creates all kinds of hellified, sticky, impassable situations if you're trying to enact and execute white supremacy? It creates huge problems. I'm white and I say so can only take you so far. I'd like to go a little bit further here. Like to go just a little bit further. And I'm going to do that. I really, really am. Because you see, this goes a little bit bigger than that and goes a little bit deeper than that. Jason, what do you mean? Well, folks, there are a number of people who wanted to weigh in on the subject and talk about the issue here. And I'm so glad that they've decided to do so because it gives me an opportunity to speak about that as well, including some members of the old dead black media who have dared to poke their heads up, people who have been staunch opponents of reparations, delineation, folks like that, never talked about freedmen, nothing. Certainly, the only time you talk about foundation is when you're insulting it. Damn! Well, guess who's taking it upon themselves to show up and try to weigh in on this subject? Why, it's Roland the bowling ball. Why, he's here with a few choice ignoramuses. However, parts of it here that are worthy of discussion. So for the second half of the program here, I actually want to deal with the Roland Martin situation. It's not just him. It's a number of other folk involved with that too. It's not just him. So it'll be, I want to have the whole I want the whole second half of the program here where we're going to touch on that and deal with that, because I want to go ahead and deal with that too. So we're going to go ahead and take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. And when I come back, I want to deal with the Roland Martin part of the Creek Freedmen and reparations. And also I know you figure that you've never heard, he hasn't said enough to make your head explode. But Roland actually literally, I'm not exaggerating, he literally describes his policy for delivering the black vote. And he says that reducing the cost for phone calls in prison is tangible specifically for black folk.
Nigga, what?
Nigga, what?
I'm not joking. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not embellishing. He literally says that, well, reducing the cost of prison phone calls is doing something specifically for black folk. I'm not exaggerating. He's going to say those words. I know the last few times I did it, you all fell out of your chairs. You got your blood pressure monitors. You were flushing out your ears. You're like, did I really hear that? Oh, you ain't heard nothing yet? Wait till you hear this one. And he's literally going to say it. Before I do, I want to thank everyone who has contributed toward tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Shout out here to my man, Ray the King. Thank you very much for your support tonight, brother. We appreciate that. Shout out here also to Sharia. Thank you very much for your support here as well. To my man, Tom Slick. Black to Death is giving out some memberships. Logic Before Emotion gave out some memberships. Creole Lady, shout out to you here as well. We appreciate that. I also want to put some of this in context because I don't want folks who may identify as Creek Freedmen to start seeing that. You start identifying as Black Creek. I don't want you all to get confused and start fudging that as Black Greek. You're going to have some folks out here who are going to be talking like they are Black Creek. But I want to make sure that they don't start fudging that line and start acting more similar to Black Greeks. Because we all know what happens when some folk get the ability to start identifying with hyphens. Next thing you know, they become like Caribbeans. It's, oh, I'm not Black, I'm Cape Verdean. I ain't Black, I'm Creek. So just keep that in mind. Oh, don't worry, we're going to touch on that and more right after this non-commercial break. This is the Black Channel.
Did you know hip-hop is more than just music? It's a movement shaping the places we live, work, and grow. Rap Estate, hip-hop's influence on housing, community, and neighborhood development dives deep into how this powerful culture has become a force for change. From its roots in urban neighborhoods to its global impact, discover how artists like Public Enemy and Jay-Z use lyrical storytelling to spotlight issues like gentrification, economic justice, and affordable housing. This groundbreaking book uncovers the stories, struggles, and solutions inspired by hip-hop, turning beats and rhymes into blueprints for real change. Ready to see how hip-hop is rebuilding communities and empowering lives? Get your copy of Rap Estate today and join the movement.
Be the teacher, knowledge on the block. Got the kids learning, minds open like a lock. Books and skills from the east to the west. Bringing education, yeah, we're simply the best. Classes on fire, brains burning with desire. Innovation driving like a tire through the mire. Math, science, history, we got the whole range. Kids hitting new heights, teachers making a change. Used to be the teacher, stacking up the grades. Future bright shining, no need for no shades. Got the youth thriving, moving up the ladder. Smart and sharp, brains growing fatter. Lessons so lit, yeah, they stay in a blaze. Every mind sharp like a sword in the haze. Mr. B in the house breaking knowledge chains. Education kingpin, we repping the games. Used to be the teacher.
The Honey Badger and the Mongoose is a children's story for the family of how a honey badger and mongoose fight an evil alliance of venomous cobra snakes and hyenas that overhauls the balance of the savannah. The Big Five. The honey badger demands reparations. Will the Big Five give the honey badger reparations? Can the evil alliance of cobras and hyenas be stopped? The best new price for the hard and soft cover is at www.thehoneyBadgerandthemongoose.com. You can also find this book at Amazon, Audible, and Kindle.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slavery and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And I want to go over here to a program here that was done by Roland earlier this week, because he actually talked to the attorney who was behind this case. And this ties together so many of the things that I've been talking about here for the longest time. It is, while it's enjoyable to watch, it's also incredibly frustrating because we talk about this over and over again here. But I want to go ahead and let you hear let you hear the fella explain exactly what the case was, and also to come back to the point that I've been hammering on this whole time during tonight's program.
Several times as well. He joins us right now, of course, co-founder of Justice for Greenwood. So go ahead and tell us what's up with the Creek Freedmen. Walk people through what happened today and how significant this is to Mario.
Well, good to see you, Roland. This is very significant because for the first time in 46 years, Black Creeks, also known as Creek Freedmen, will now have their citizenship rights restored to the Muskogee Creek Nation.
For the first time in 46 years. 46 people, not 146. 46 years. So in other words, we were good up until 50 years ago, 55, 56 years ago. We were good. So why is it that things changed all of a sudden 46 years ago? Why were we good for the century before then, and all of a sudden we're going to flip it? Why would you jump up and do that after all those decades? Now, from the beginning of the program, you've seen that explained. Now you have the attorney who was involved who just confirmed everything I just told you, but he's going to confirm a lot more.
This will impact tens of thousands of Black Creeks throughout the nation who will not only receive their birthright and their citizenship rights, but also have opportunities to have tangible benefits, life-sustaining and altering benefits like free health care, child care, education benefits, etc.
Okay.
What? Damn! Oh, man. Oh, okay. Oh, that explains a few things there now, doesn't it? Also might explain why some selfish individuals decided they were going to sit up here and try to exclude other people. So, yeah, by the way, it's bigger than just citizenship. Citizenship has its privileges. Even if you don't want to use them, if those are your rights, you got those. Yes, those are tangibles.
Okay, so explain to folks, why would they have free health care, free child benefits? What, as a result of the Muskogee Nation? Explain that.
Sure. Well, the Muskogee Creek Nation was one of the five quote-unquote civilized tribes who in the late 1700s, early 1800s adopted European-style culture, speaking English and having a plantation-style economy. And a part of that was the enslavement of Africans and of their own indigenous Black members.
Oh, so this wasn't Jason Black just making that up. Well, Jason, is it really the way you trying to say it is? Is it really like that? It ain't like that. You exaggerating. It ain't really, it wasn't really that. There wasn't no folk. There wasn't none of y'all here, but y'all wasn't really no indigenous folk. By the way, he's about to go even further than I did. I just stopped it right there just in case there'll be some suckers jumping out the window early. No, Jason, you just playing part of it. I'm sure that's not the way he really means it. No, that's the way he really means it because he's about to go into detail. But by the way, yeah, exactly what I said.
Five quote-unquote civilized tribes who in the late 1700s, early 1800s adopted European-style culture, speaking English and having a plantation-style economy. And a part of that was the enslavement of Africans and of their own indigenous Black members. And so when they was moved to Oklahoma in the 1830s and continued to enslave and continue to discriminate against their Black members, they sided with the Confederacy during the Civil War. They lost, obviously the Confederacy lost the war at the time, and so they had to do new treaties. And that Treaty of 1866, which was negotiated and signed by 5 individuals, one of them being my 4-time great-grandfather, Cal Tom, ended enslavement within the Creek Nation, and it also granted citizenship to all Creeks of African descent. But in 1979, the Creek Nation decided they did not want the Creeks of African descent anymore, and they illegally excluded us through their new constitution. And so we've been fighting that battle ever since. And today, Their own Supreme Court affirmed that the Treaty of 1866 guarantees Creeks of African descent, also known as Creek Freedmen, to have full citizenship within the Creek Nation.
Exactly as it was stated to you there before. Don't worry, there's more to it. There's more to it, but exactly as it was said to you there before. Now, I want to let something else here play because I want to. They also say something about his background as well, and I think that's kind of important. So, by the way, fair use bowling ball, fair use. But there's a lot of good points in here that are touching on things I've been saying now going on for decades, playing out exactly the way I said it would if it were pursued that way.
Folks who don't know, walk through how long this legal battle has been going on, because they were trying everything to shut y'all down.
Yeah, even when you came down, Roland, you saw it firsthand. Listen, I started working on this in 1999 when I was trying to get my own citizenship. And then when I graduated law school in 2004, this was the first case I took to trial in 2005.
What? Yeah. He took this on as his own personal cause. He didn't just sit back and do nothing about it. He went to law school himself. When he graduated, he put that law license to some work. People, I've been saying this now and beating this drum now for decades, literally. I'm going to have a very painful reminder to you, but a very necessary reminder to you. You can talk as stupid, and it's stupid is what you are. You can talk as stupid and dumb as you want to, and in relish in being as idiotic as you want to be, about Jewish people and Jewish lawyers and Jewish judges. They learned the lessons of Nazi Germany. They didn't ask the kid what you want to do when you grow up. They witnessed as the Wannsee Conference went to work to say that we're going to classify you as non-people, non-Germans. Here are the laws and the rules that we'll use to do it. So their first order of business, after whoever could survive World War II, first order of business, okay, we don't need anybody else going to a white supremacist judge or an Anglo supremacist judge. Because unfortunately, you got plenty of white supremacist Jews out there, but we're not going to have ourselves unrepresented in the courts. We're going to have our people in the courts at every level. We're not going to just sit back and watch this and be spectators. We will be required to get involved. And so ever since then, everywhere in this country, they've got representation in the court system, in the judicial system. It's going to take a hard lot of work for you to dispossess them by using the law. You can't use the law to do it. You might be able to dispossess Jewish people in America. You just can't use the law to do it. They got that sewn up, and that's in their interests. They learned the lessons of World War II. Their kids are not only are their kids in law school, they founded law schools, not for profit, but because they realized if the law can be made to say that we have no protections, what the hell good does it do to have this damn corporation and the slamming Cadillac doors and pimping hoes if the law says that you can annihilate us down to the last man, woman, and child? So you better keep some of that damn money kicked back so we can have a law school and some law professors and some judges and some Supreme Court judges. We better make sure that we are all throughout this apparatus and all throughout this structure. That's what you're supposed to do. That's not some evil, insidious conspiracy. You're supposed to do that. And we're supposed to have black folk literally everywhere in this court system. You should not be able to even say the word court without saying black. We should be everywhere. From the moment that you walk in that door to the moment you walk out. On account of the fact of what the hell's happened to us. We should be 10 times the density of these other folk here. Are you taking this seriously? Well, this fella here, for what it's worth, this is what I've said forever. Where in the hell is our black judicial class? Where in the hell is our black legal class? The strides that were made in the 1950s and 60s on the strength of brothers like Thurgood Marshall. We used to have a black judicial class. We used to have it. We wouldn't even have to be talking about Tulsa and about Wilmington and about Rosewood if we actually had a black legal class. And this is my proof of it. And it didn't take 1 million of them either. Now, it took him more decades than it should have, but it didn't take a damn million of them. Don't tell me about another nigga, and I'm talking about you, Bill Cosby. Don't tell me about another nigga sitting up and talking about paying for somebody's scholarships. If you are not lined up at the law schools, and I'm going to say this, we should have been had a black skull and bones. Roland Martin, you big jackalope, you can go take your big butterball turkey built ass up out of here. Y'all are not saying that we need to have a black skull and bones. It's just a bunch of damn so-called black Greeks sitting around shaving each other's legs and oiling each other up and ain't doing a damn thing. Maybe if you fellas got together and did something different besides sitting up here putting damn me Jolly Ranchers on y'all's nipples at these little conventions y'all get together with Mark Lamont Hill, maybe you'd get something accomplished. Maybe you would. Y'all don't get together and say, okay, damn a National Association of Black Journalists. Y'all should be getting together talking about, here's what we're going to get together as a group. We're going to go in the back room back here. No Epstein, no Diddy. Now, I know that'd be kind of tough for y'all, but no Epstein, no Diddy. And we're going to talk about how we're going to put together a group of you. You're going to be the law firm. You're going to be the law group. You're going to be the law foundation. We will have an answer to Ed Blum and the rest of these folk. They ain't going to be able to move nowhere. They're not going to be able to move because we got people over here. You all have never heard the bowling ball say that. Because when they get together, that's not what they do it for. Let's be very clear. I'm standing on every syllable I've ever said. The so-called black judicial class in America, let's just keep it all the way funky. All them niggas get, they say niggas, I damn sure did.
And deal with it, nigga.
All them niggas do when they get together is sit around talking about going to get together someplace, showing off some $150,000 car, wearing their suits and seeing if they can sit up here and have their own personal freak off. That's what they do. But they don't serve the people. They just get together to show off with each other like they do at church. No accomplishments, not a one. So I give shout out to this fella here for at least getting this part here done. But the rest of them, you know I'm telling the damn truth. They are summarily useless.
10. Listen, I started working on this in 1999 when I was trying to get my own citizenship. And then when I graduated law school in 2004, this was the first case I took to trial in 2005. And we lost in 2007. We lost again in 2018, we lost in 2019, but we kept hitting, and we had a victory in 2023 that the Creek Nation appealed, and it's from this appeal that we have finally heard their Supreme Court say, yes, you can win. Because in 2007, the Muscogee Nation Supreme Court ruled against us. So this is an amazing day. It is just, I can't stop smiling. And I just wish my grandmother, Johnny Mae Austin, who died in 2019 at 89 years old, who was a named plaintiff in our case in 2018. She spoke Creek, and she grew up on our Creek allotment. I just wish she was here to witness this.
Explain when you said their Supreme Court.
Okay, for those of you who don't know how Native American sovereignty works, I'll let you go to Google and go check that out for yourselves. Now, he started taking questions from these other folk here. We're just going to skip ahead through all that, to be totally honest. And I want to let him play a little bit of this other part up here.
Enslaved.
Yeah, absolutely.
The black man can't catch a break.
Yeah, but
yeah, congratulations on your victory. Although, are you really saying that Indians, the Native Americans, discriminated against black people, just like white people discriminated against black people in this country?
No, he didn't say discriminated. He said enslaved.
Enslaved.
Yeah. He said enslaved.
Nigga, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
The black man can't catch a break.
Yeah, but go ahead, Scott.
So let me ask you this. So as part of this deal or this ruling, first thing that comes to mind is reparations. Are there any reparations in the mix in this ruling, or is that
Okay, because this guy here is a lawyer too, as a matter of fact. This guy here talking is a lawyer too, so for those of you who wondered about the title, the thumbnail of tonight's video, Jason, what's this got to do with reparations? Oh, hell, you spoke a little bit too soon. You were hoping it wasn't related because you didn't want to have to take intellectual responsibility for it. Because there's a lot of folks who are hoping that the reparations conversation just disappears and that it never really has to come up and that it never goes to fruition. But yeah, by the way, no, I wasn't speaking out of turn. There's other folks who realized immediately, this opens up another door on that subject, right?
Reparations in the mix in this ruling, or is that a subsequent separate lawsuit Black Creek would have to bring?
Yeah, great. That's a great question, and I think it's something that should be thought about. At this particular ruling, this is just about the citizenship aspect of it, and what we're hoping. Our goal, and I'm reaching out to the chief. I'm hoping he can meet with me before I come to Chicago. Scott, I'll see you in Chicago at the NBA conference. I'm hoping I can get to the chief, on Friday, and let's have a discussion about, hey, how can we heal the divide? How can we work together, become one family again, and move forward and have that conciliation and be able to deal with some of these issues that even the one you talked about? So those things are all on the table. But first and foremost, we just want to say, can we get our citizenship? Can you recognize us not only as first-class citizens within the nation, but recognize our contribution to the Creek Nation over the last 500 years? See, here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize we were here when Columbus got here. There were Black Creeks here when the European came here. We're well documented going back to the 1500s. And so don't try to erase our contribution. Don't try to erase what we've done. Don't try to erase our heroes and sheroes within the nation. Let's move forward as one people.
What you mean, brother, is do not try to erase our existence. And by our, I mean the Black Creeks. Do not try to erase the presence or the existence of. So for some of the folks out there who are desperately buck dancing in your own minds and cooning in your own minds and hoping, well, Jason, there's not really any indigenous Black Native Americans. I mean, that thing you played him saying before, he didn't really say that they were indigenous. Oh, hell, I know I broke your damn heart. So let me go ahead and replay one more time.
But recognize our contribution to the Creek Nation over the last 500 years. See, here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize we were here when Columbus got here. There were Black Creeks here when the European came here. We're well documented going back to the 1500s.
Game, set, match. Checkmate. Game over. Confirming literally everything that we've been saying here going on 2 decades. And for those of us in Black empowerment, been saying going on for decades immemorial, putting all of this in its proper context. No, we were here before the Mayflower, before Columbus. Name whatever colloquialism that you want. This is an undeniable historical fact that has been deliberately either hidden or disputed because of the ramifications of it. This idea that you Negroes, Ron DeSantis and the rest of the white supremacists, well, if the Europeans hadn't brought you here, and yet that's not the case. And yet we can prove definitively that's not the case, which is why they keep wanting to change the subject. because that statement has ramifications. It has consequences. And yes, it presents a bill to everybody, including the so-called 5 civilized tribes. It presents a bill to everyone. Everyone gets a bill. So these things that, and understand, they're not going to let these things go easily, people, because there are legal, social, political, economic ramifications of every single one of these things. To disinherit us is government policy. To claim that you didn't exist before the plantation over here. Not you weren't Americans, you didn't exist. And so when you can disprove that, now you have to go along with everything else that is a result of that. And what you're seeing is there are a whole bunch of people with a vested interest. They've made an industry out of lying about our lineage. Let me say that again. They have created an entire industry. One of the foundations, if you will, of capitalism in America is centers around denying our existence and presence. Because the truth of the matter is, many, and this is a point we've been trying to make for the longest time, many of the folk who are here, how is it that so many of us know so much about this? Because in our family trees, you've got Native Americans. Now, we've never really hung our hat on it, per se. We never made a big issue of it because we didn't think that we're better than anybody else, because you can say that, and we don't go along with this Hollywood mysticization. But this idea that somehow we are guests in the house of the Cherokee, that, well, the red folk and the white folk especially, those are the real Native Americans, but you niggas, well, you're guests. I mean, you're indentured servants. You were grandfathered in as a result of being indentured servants in the house of the Chickasaw, in the house of the Choctaw, in the house of the Creek, in the house of the Cherokee. No, we're not. We are the foundation of that too. Which is why a whole bunch of people have made an industry of making sure folks don't check your lineage. Just take our word for it. If you're not on this list over here, don't worry about it. It ain't you. Why do they fight this so hard? Why do they fight this so fervently? Why do they fight this so passionately? Because they don't want to tell you we were here before Columbus, and if you check the DNA, you will see that we were here before the red.
What? Damn!
We were definitely here before the white. Y'all came with the Europeans. Everybody else came here after us. I don't give a damn how many movies Kevin Costner makes. I don't care how many movies and documentaries that they make. Dances with Wolves, cute film. You're leaving some stuff out. You're leaving some things out. There are some inconvenient realities that y'all keep omitting because you don't want to talk about that part, because that part has ramifications. When you start talking about who it was, at that point, you can't argue anymore about who saved the Europeans, who kept them from starving, who taught them to plant, westward expansion. At that point right there, you can't argue that anymore. It's like, I'll be damned. That has ramifications. They have a vested interest in lying about this, which is what they've been doing, and certainly by not adhering to any rules on it, because this matters. This matters. There are a bunch of you right now, and I don't want this to go to your heads because I don't want this to go the wrong way. a lot of us right here, there's a bunch of us here. You can trace this back in your family trees. If you talk to your great grandmama and whatnot, y'all know y'all got folk in your family. It's like, you got the Choctaw back there. You got the Cherokee back there. Yeah, we got the Seminoles there. Your people go over to Florida to the East Coast. Yeah, you got Seminoles in the family. You got Cherokee in the family. Not just some anecdote the way a lot of these white folk out there try to graft and on this. Like, no. We go straight back. But when people have conversations with you, they start everything at slavery. And just like the plantation owners, oh, you don't have a history before slavery. I've taught you all this for 2 decades also. Whenever you ask about that, what did the plantation owners say? You don't have a history before this plantation. Yeah, but where did I come from before here? You come from right here. Your history starts right here. There is no before the plantation. This is all you got. Stop asking those questions. You might get your little ass killed. You don't have a history before this plantation, and stop asking about one. Because when you start saying that, at that point, you have now established your legitimacy. We are the only people, I've said this over and over again. This is why this kind of case is so important. We are the only people with a legitimate grievance. The only ones with a legitimate historical grievance. We didn't side with any damn body. We were victimized from day one, didn't side with anyone. Got stabbed in the back by everyone. We're the only ones with a legitimate historical grievance and a legitimate current one, and that's why we knocking every damn body else off our damn backs. Stop trying to piggyback on us and claim you have a grievance because you have geographic proximity to us. You don't have a grievance. You don't have one. You're trying to fabricate one based off the only people who actually have a real one. This is why everybody else got to get off our back. And if we actually had a true legitimate legal class, people, we'd have been had Rosewood back. We'd have been settled this situation in Tulsa. We'd have been taking care of Rosewood. We'd have been taking care of Eatonville. We'd have been taking care of all those places. We'd have been took care of that. I talked about here in Louisiana, remember? Talked about these folk there. The young man, his grandma was a Native American, and he went to school. He might not be the greatest attorney, but at least his folks got an attorney to start the process of recognizing them as legitimate Native Americans. We should have been on top of this. Everybody talking about Johnny Cochran. Okay, who's the next one? When it comes to basketball and sports and rap, everybody's looking for the next one. When it comes to some of the stuff we really need, where's the next one? But don't expect your Essence Festival and the Congressional Black Caucus, because you got plenty of lawyers up in there. Only their asses belong to the white interests. Ain't that right, Jasmine Thought Pocket Crockett?
Damn!
Hakeem Jeffries.
What?
A bunch of ass-kissing niggas who sit up here of questionable backgrounds, and they spent their lives looking for white corporate interests to go kiss up to, which is why they are the coon's delight in the Democrat Party. But you don't see them having this kind of conversation here right now, nor will they. But there are folks who don't like this. There are people who actually don't like this, folks. Y'all got to understand, these other folks out here have created their buck dancing coon and hustle. And their interest is by rallying the rest of us to basically work against our own best interests so that they can get something for themselves. That's what they're looking to do. Get something for themselves. That's what they're interested in. And that brings me back to rolling the bowling ball. I wasn't going to say anything. I really wasn't. I wasn't going to say nothing here, but we're going to stop for a moment here. Because Roland said something here last week, and I'm not going to do what you expect in Butterball. I'm not going to do that. But what I do want to do here is show everybody that Roland basically comes off the rails. He's very upset. At least he's feigning to be upset. He's once again trying to tell everybody that Donald Trump's the greatest threat ever, and if we could only support the Democrats, while the Democrats were so much better, and he wants to tell us all about all the great things that we were getting, and how wonderful things were, and why if we had just listened to folk like him, we wouldn't have screwed it up. I want you all to listen to him sit here and vent and hang on to your hats, because in his desperation to try to substantiate some reason to support the Democrats, listen to some of the nonsense that he comes up with.
This is all part of a larger strategy, which is to try to force us into the street and confrontation. This is what deploying the Marines in California is about. This is what these nasty provocations are about. Now,
so his guest on here is trying to tell us that the illegal aliens, this is what we need to be supporting here for the illegal aliens. So that gives you a good idea what they're starting with there, or at least what they're trying to do. So just to give you a primer of where this is going. So the Butterball wants to weigh in here next, and he wants to let us all know. I want you all to listen here about what because he's going to piggyback off of what you just heard. That's why I played that. He's going to piggyback off of that to tell you all what the strategy is, the 4D chess, if you will, that we all just don't understand.
You know, Reese, and I've seen this in other group chats. Folks like, oh, they're trying to bait us. But you know what? Whether folk want to own it or not, when them Latinos fought back against ICE, people responded. See, we know he wants to invoke the Insurrection Act. We know this.
Nigga, what?
He is sitting there on his bulbous mashed potato ass, wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. People, he is wearing a Black Lives Matter t-shirt and extolling to us, to a black audience, because there are no Latinos who gonna let his Jolly Rancher build ass in the room. He's not talking to Latinos. He's coming over here to us to extol the virtues of defending illegal aliens, illegal alien Latinos. He's coming to the black audience to sell us on that. Y'all notice these Jasmine Crockett's and these Hakeem Jeffries and whatnot. Yeah, these folks, nothing for black folk. They want to tell us about what we need to do for everybody else. And can't show any of these folk reciprocating that where he's concerned. Yeah, because he's here to deliver something. Deliver the black vote. If you don't believe me, listen to what he says next.
Fought back against ICE? Trying to bait us. But you know what? Whether folk want to own it or not, when them Latinos fought back against ICE, people responded. See, we know he wants to invoke the Insurrection Act. We know this. But they are counting on people being afraid. They're counting on people being too scared. And if there was ever a moment where they have to be met with massive protests, this is that moment. But it cannot be gathering just for the hell of it. It has to be not, well, we're going to be in this city or we're going to have this protest. No. It has to be a strategic protest that is around voting.
Nigga, what?
Oh, yeah. So he's trying to tie in the illegal aliens and that all of us need to be in the streets protesting for illegals. And then he's telling you, oh, and it can't just be a protest. Why? You need to protest for illegals, and that all needs to be part of a strategy that leads you to voting. As I said, Roland is here to start ranting and crying about his failed strategy to deliver the black vote. Everything for him, his job is to deliver the black vote. So if you're mobilized to protest, which folks ain't, but even if you were, he's going to tell you, by the way, while you protesting, remember the end goal is for you to vote. Well, who do we vote for? Jim Crow Joe Biden? Why, sure, he's sure better than Trump is. His job, Roland's job, his obligation is to deliver the black vote, and he's failed to do that miserably for the last two cycles here, 2022, 2024. So he is desperate to get back on that horse, because if he can't, he serves no purpose to the white paymasters in the Democrat Party, because that's the only reason that they let the little troll around.
This is that moment, but it cannot be gathering just for the hell of it. It has to be not, well, we're going to be in this city or we're going to have this protest. No. It has to be a strategic protest that is around voting. See, you've got mayoral elections in New Orleans in the fall. You've got the Virginia House and Senate race. You have to make them pay politically. And so you must be utilizing protests that, first of all, mobilizes people. Then once you mobilize them, you organize them, and now you direct them to a certain thing.
So in other words, Roland does not want you to protest as an end unto itself. Protesting needs to be the means to an end, so it doesn't matter what got you all in the street. Don't look to resolve your issues in the street. We want to see how we use this as some type of rally to get you all to come vote. At the end of the day, he's here to try to strategize. How do we get you all to come show up and vote? How can I use this to maneuver you and manipulate you into showing up to vote? And since he failed miserably at this before, I told you this is his only occupation, his only job, and did I call it or did I call it? He's here to figure out how to deliver that black vote. Well, Roland's kind of mad. He is kind of furious right here. I mean, looking like a great big candy apple. His head was getting so red and angry. And he's upset because, you see, in his desperate efforts to deliver the black vote that are failing spectacularly, he has an obstacle in his way. There is an obstacle that is stopping him from getting done what he needs to get done. And this guy who you think would be so influential, why YouTube gave him 1.8 million subscribers, and yet he's as irrelevant as can be, ineffective as can be, futile as can be. He wants to let you all know what the real problem is. Now, I'm going to start here at this point because this chick, ma'am, turn off the filters.
Oh, please.
By the way, ladies, turn off the filters. Y'all start looking like AI. You can't soften the stuff this much. The camera looks out of focus. So ease off the filters, people. It seems like a good idea. It's not. But I want to go ahead and play this part right here. Now, by the way, make sure your children are not in the room because Unsexy Red has a bit of a potty mouth. Damn! So Roland's got Unsexy Red, and I want to play the end of what she has to say because it goes into where Roland says,
"Going back. That was Kamala's slogan. We're not going back." And what do? We had lower turnout, and lower support for Kamala Harris than even Hillary Clinton got. And I heard super predators a million times when Hillary Clinton was running, and yet Kamala Harris got less votes. So they know that they can do what they're doing.
Could you imagine this being your ex-wife? Just a brief aside. Could you imagine this is your ex-wife? She's coming to court for 50% of everything. Oh, this is going to be excruciating. This is going to be agonizing. She's going to be showing up for court with a smile on her face. She's going to be getting DoorDash in court. She's going to be so thrilled to be there. Could you imagine if this were your ex-wife and she's filed for divorce? This is the kind of chick who would file for divorce and go around the house changing the locks on the bathroom door. What? That's the kind of female this is. She would file for divorce and change the locks on the kitchen door. She would put a padlock on the stove and the refrigerator. She would take the kids to a whole different private school without telling you.
I don't think it's a provocation. It is y'all ain't gonna do shit. And they might just be fucking right.
Nola, when you sit elections out, you get what you get. And for the people who go, oh my God, I didn't think it was going to go this far. I mean, again, you can't say they didn't tell you. They said it. We warned people. Yeah, y'all shilling. Yeah, y'all know who y'all are. Y'all know. If I had to do a roll call of all them Simple Simon Negroes, yeah. If I had to, don't get me started. I could run the tables on Vicky Dillon, Boyce Watkins, Tariq Nasheed, Umar Johnson, Philip Scott. Oh yeah, Black Authority. All y'all. Look at them, they shilling. Look at them, they shilling for the Democrats. They just chill. Yeah, look at y'all just shit. But
all right. Y'all, he did good right up until the end. He did good right up till he got to that end part. You were doing good messing with everybody else right till you got to the end. And I know what your strategy is, bowling ball. You're not getting numbers like that. You're hoping that by mentioning other people that they will play your program on their programs. And so you'll be able to basically force or compel their audiences to listening to your point. Here's the issue, Roland. That only works if you actually have a leg to stand on. It doesn't work if you're debunked. It doesn't work if you're wrong. It doesn't work if you're a laughingstock. It only works if somehow you have a credible point to stand on. Now, let me say this right now in front of everybody, and this would be a bit controversial, but to the extent that it is, that's on you. That's not on me. But while I'm making sure that I'm clarifying things across the board, what I'm about to say here next, no shade, no nothing. You all know me. I don't do the public beefing thing. I don't do that, but I want to make something here clear. To the bowling ball who's sitting there walking around with his aquarium boots on and his bell bottoms, and for a nigga that short to be wearing bell bottoms, and the hat with the feather hanging out of it and whatnot, I know he didn't get the memo. Dude, the folk you just named, there's only two names on there that are the black media. there's really only two names. So I guess you're naming off the list of folks you're hating on, but there are only two names on there that fit that criterion. So it's not enough to just be a YouTuber. For those of you who are not aware, it's not enough to just be a YouTuber. So, trying to sit up here and lump them all together because you're hoping that you can spread this around so that you can get maximum exposure. But I want to be very clear about this part right here, folks. Don't put my name next to other people's names and claim we all together, because that's not the way that works. That is not the way that works. For some of you, if you like to be entertained on other channels, well, you go do that. Go be entertained as much as you want to, but there's a reason why I distinguish myself in that regard. You don't just sit up here and start every week you look up and it's going to be a new name. That's not the way that works. That's not the way that works. You don't have politicians. You don't have media figures. You don't have the top of the Democrat ticket. You don't have multi-billionaires, Tom Steyer. You don't have folk talking about damn that cut the check. You don't have people saying that kind of stuff right there. The black media is what pushes this into the popular consciousness. This is not about being a fanboy or a fangirl. Being a fan don't make you a member. That's not what that is. When we say something here on the Black Channel, it gets picked up by presidential candidates, senators, politicians, lawyers. It gets picked up by them. It doesn't just remain in the blackosphere, if you will. It penetrates all the way through. When they start asking questions like, what we gonna do about this reparations thing? What we gonna do about this cut the check thing? What are we gonna do about this black first thing? This tangibles thing. You're just gonna do something just for black people now? What are we gonna do about that? That isn't everybody you hear that raise those issues. They have a specific couple of people that they refer to when they say that. That's not everybody. No shade on nothing. That's not everybody. There's just a few folk. There were some people who used to get mentioned in the media and nobody talks about them anymore. That wave rose and crashed. You can go to their channels. They'll be lucky if they can get 2,000 or 3,000 views. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Meanwhile, over here in the black media, we don't have that problem because real recognizes real. So, Roland, this is a desperate attempt on your part to dilute the waters. You ain't going to throw me in there with grifters or any nonsense like that. I'm not here. You're not going to throw me up in there and whatnot. That's not what that's going to be. So I'm letting everybody know here right now exactly where I stand on that. When you see Roland try to dilute the waters, that's not what we do. That's not what we do. So Roland's hoping to raise the exposure level. It's not going to work out the way he told himself it would. It really, really isn't. No, the new black media is not just a bunch of YouTubers. That's not what that is. It's not a bunch of folk who used to be on CNN. That's not what it is. It's not that. It's not a bunch of folks hoping that they can get some AdSense on YouTube. That's not what it is. And I said that.
And deal with it, nigga.
By the way, and I said that all damn day. I am not going to deliver the audience somewhere. That's not what it's going to be. This is not some networking event or kumbaya in that regard. You got to earn your stripes and earn your credentials over here. I ain't heard no major media figures talking about you. They're not because there's no reason to. They're not quoting you. Got a few sucker niggas out here stealing every damn thing that they got. Everything they say, they done stole it from somewhere else. That you're not legit. You're not legit when folks are clowning you 24/7. That's not legit. So Roland is hoping to group that all together. I'm like, no. You ain't gonna mix the real with the phony. It's not gonna be that. You're not gonna mix the real with the phony. Roland gonna be real upset about that. However, I ain't done with him just yet. Because you see, this is the reason why you're upset about this, Roland. The reason why you're upset about this is because, man, Roland, if you were so influential, we wouldn't matter. You wouldn't be complaining that the folks who said stay home, it actually worked. You wouldn't be complaining about that if we were inconsequential. Very clearly, as folks, I've told you now going on for a couple of years when Roland started cracking on this issue, I said, do not believe me. Believe my enemies. Believe my adversaries. Listen to what they're saying. Roland is the one who's saying that it worked. He's the one saying that's the reason they lost the election. He's the one complaining about it. I'm not saying it worked. He is. He's saying it. So, Roland, we should be inconsequential to all the dummies and jackasses who thought that subscriber number meant anything. I've been saying this forever. Let me go ahead and drill this through your head for a moment here. Folks, it doesn't matter if you have, quote unquote, 1 million subscribers if they are all a bunch of old church ladies, diehard blue dog Democrats. They're irrelevant. You're preaching to the choir. You're not preaching to the next generation. You're not preaching to the young. You're not preaching to the people who are on the fence. You're not talking to the moderates. You're not talking to the independents. Roland Martin is talking to the damn Barack Obama voter base. He is not talking to the 2025 voter base. He's not speaking to them. He ain't doing it. That's the problem. So, Roland, if you were so influential, then everything we say shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. All these politicians would have made you think that the old dead black media was still relevant. And the reason that he's mad is because we exposed his weakness. If he was still running the yard, then it wouldn't matter how much squawking we were doing. It would just be irrelevant and ignored if he was running the yard. So very clearly he's not running it because he's complaining about what we've said. That tells you whose message actually got through. That tells you whose message is actually prevailing today. Now, as promised, well, I'm going to go forward a little bit more here. Let me go forward a little bit more because I want you all to hear Roland complaining here about we just don't understand and we just don't get it, apparently.
Supremacists. If I got a white supremacist who is going to employ a white supremacist like Stephen Miller, and who says to me, I want to give cops 100% immunity. I want to shut down all civil rights programs. I want to shut down all affirmative action programs. If that's on this side, and on this side, I got a black woman who talked about, all y'all Negro, she said she wasn't going to do nothing specific for black people. What did he say he was going to do specific for black people? But we got a black woman over here who fought for record amounts of money for black contracts through the SBA, HBCU funding, black maternal health, and a host of others. But then y'all Simple Simon Negro said she wasn't black enough. Oh, but we know he white enough and orange, but she wasn't black enough. So if you think that's the choice I had between that fool and her, you goddamn right I was going with her.
First of all, why did his fingers look like ballpark Franks?
Cookie! Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. Can I take your order?
I mean, they look like a couple of ballpark Franks, just two of them just clubbing together. All right. While he's sitting up here trying to read us the riot act. How many of you are beneficiaries of affirmative action? How many of you got some affirmative action help? I'll wait. How many of you are beneficiaries of any civil rights actions? How many of you are beneficiaries of civil rights actions? I'll wait. How many of you who went to HBCUs got any sort of federal funding that you can point your finger at and say, hey, I needed that. That was great for me. I'll wait. Do you want to talk about helping the police? What did Joe Biden do to help us against the police? He tried to get the McMichaels off, remember? Joe Biden could have prosecuted all those folks behind Breonna Taylor, but George Zimmerman, Daniel Pantaleo, he could have, Carolyn Bryant. Joe Biden and his bedwench at the Justice Department, Kirsten Clark, they let the mother of white supremacy, Carolyn Bryant, off. We'll notice that Roland ain't saying nothing about that. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris let Carolyn Bryant off. They refused to go after her. So there is no difference between him and Trump, between Kamala Harris and Trump. There is no difference. And I want to say one more thing. Oh, this is going to hurt a lot of damn feelings here tonight. I'm going to say one more thing here. You'll never be able to sell me on Kamala Harris. You know why? Kamala Harris is a lawyer. What? Damn! Oh, man. Kamala Harris is a lawyer. You know, Kamala, there ain't a damn thing stopping you right now, today, because you filed plenty of damn lawsuits and actions when you were Attorney General of California. Ain't nothing stopping your raggedy ass today from filing some lawsuits on our behalf, ma'am. You don't have to be elected for that. You can do that all on your own. Why, you don't even got to call downtown Willie Brown to get no help with it. Hey, folks, she's a lawyer. And she's not currently serving in office right now either. So there ain't a damn thing stopping her today from taking legal action on our behalf. Nothing is stopping her except her. So you're not going to sell me on the legitimacy or the merits of Kamala Harris when she's sitting there with her big ass law degree and ain't doing the damn thing for us with it. You're not in office right now, baby. You need to get some wins under your damn belt and get your ass some credibility and some credentials. A few lawsuits on our behalf would certainly go a long damn way to getting you the credibility you currently don't have. You're not doing anything to help your damn self. Okay, then go kick it with them other folk. You ain't got nothing to talk about with us. Oh yeah, y'all forgot all about that. Now, as promised, y'all, you want to talk about completely crashing out. You want to talk about crashing all the damn way out. Well, Roland Martin was so angry. He was so upset. He became so unhinged because he was so unhappy about the fact they don't have a leg to stand on to justify why we would support them whatsoever. Obviously, he has been sent out to try to tell us in time for 2026 about all the wonderful things we received from them folk. He was required to explain the tangibles we received. He didn't have much to work with. They said, look here, you little round hamburger built nigga. We don't give a damn what you think. You better get out there and give us something. So, ladies and gentlemen, Roland Martin came out, and he came out with, well, he was required to show something, and, well, this is the something that he came with.
And these are the same folk who love talking about fight. We're going to have a topic coming up next. They ain't saying nothing how under a Democrat appointee on the FCC changed the damn law when it came to how many folks were getting overcharged for making phone calls in prison. Republicans got in and said, no, we throwing that out. We're just going to discuss that next. I'm sorry. I forgot, Nola. What no tangibles. Yeah.
Nigga, what?
Nigga, what?
Nigga, what?
What?
Nigga, please. Nigga, please. Nigga, please.
Yeah, you heard it. I'm not exaggerating anything tonight. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being hyperbolic. I told you those were going to be his exact words. That the tangibles that we received was Lena Khan, who wasn't elected, but she was actually a very good commissioner for the FTC. I can't lie about that. She was excellent. But by the way, he's telling us that the tangibles that Lena Khan, not Joe Biden, but the tangibles that Lena Khan delivered for us were lower rates for prison phone calls. That's the tangibles that we need to have been grateful for. Let me replay that again. You damn right I'm going to rub it down to y'all sitting up here, your stomachs are churning. No, people, that's exactly what I told you, exactly what he said. This is exactly what he said.
Folk who love talking about fight, we're going to have a topic coming up next. They ain't saying nothing how under a Democrat appointee on the FCC changed the damn law when it came to how many folks were getting overcharged for making phone calls in prison. Republicans got in and said, no, we throwing that out. We're just going to discuss that next. I'm sorry. I forgot, Nola. What no tangibles. Yeah, all y'all FBA, B1, ADOS assholes. Well, guess what? All that complaining y'all did, welcome to Trump MAGA America.
Yeah. He is insulting us and saying that we're the short-sighted people because we don't recognize the tremendous tangible benefits of reducing the rate for prison phone calls. That those are the tangibles that we just are not grateful for. Well, now they done took back she said they couldn't charge you like that for prison phone calls. Well, you didn't support Kamala Harris, so now you going back to the old rate of them old phone calls. Kamala Harris paid this guy.
What?
Remember? You all do remember that Kamala Harris paid this dude, remember? She paid him. And this is the best he could come up with to substantiate that she, quote, delivered tangibles just for us. This is the best he could come up with. Now, for those of you who may be on the short bus, maybe some of you are newcomers to all of this, let me briefly explain to you the fallacy in that. If Kamala Harris and Lena Khan showed up in front of AIPAC, showed up in front of the Anti-Defamation League, showed up in front of the Asian Pacific Islanders Conference, showed up in front of CAIRN, showed up in front of the National Council of La Raza, would they be telling them the tangible benefits that they have delivered for Israel is a reduction in the cost of phone calls for prison inmates? Well, it's for all prison inmates, but this disproportionately will affect Jewish people. Do you think that they would have dared? Do you think they ever would have had the gall to send somebody out in front of those people and seriously expect that you would say something like that and not offend every damn body in the building? Please tell me that they would go in front of the LGBT community and tell them that the tangibles that they delivered are decreased costs for prison phone calls. That they would show up in front of the Asian American Pacific Islanders Conference and tell you that, oh, well, we got Lena Khan to say that they can't overcharge you. They're still going to charge you, but they can't overcharge you for prison phone calls. If you are one of these people who thinks that what he said made any sense, then I have a simple question. Then clearly you also would say that, well, if he said that in front of everybody else, any other group, why, it would be equally as valid. All of them would be equally appreciative. Like, hey, that's something we really need. No, we didn't know we needed that before, but that's something we really need. You could get Lena Khan to get that kind of thing to happen for you there in a single day. The real stuff that really makes substantial differences and whatnot, they fight you over that for decades. That's how you can identify it. These are the same things that other groups compete for. The white folk have had this for over 140 years. Black folk had it to an extent, and then they went in there and dispossessed and disenfranchised across the board, and you're just now getting them to roll that back over 40 years later when it never should have been gone in the first place. And then they go send out their bought and paid for shills and lackeys, and this is the reason why they have lost and will continue to lose, because this plays well among the white Democrats who want to defeat you, and this plays well among their black bootlicks and lackeys who are looking for their next slice of daily bread from the white elite and establishment. This does not fly at all among the rank and file. This is an insult to the black political class listening to it, to anybody here in black society listening to it. This is an insult to black politically conscious people. This is an insult because we know what they're doing for everybody else. And every time they show up in front of us, the conversation gets real weird and real crazy and real strange. And they start talking about stuff that they don't mention to anybody else. With these other folk, they cut a check. They show up in front of us and say, well, we'll reduce, we'll do something for this little group over here that's part of a much larger group over there, but completely ignoring what we said. So you all can tell that Roland and friends have been told, man, you better get your big jiggly ass to work and start wearing them Negroes down and getting them on board with the party. And one more thing, folks, one more thing. And then we're going to go ahead and open up the Zoom for everybody. One more thing to remind you. And I said this back in 2019. I said this back in 2020. I said this in 2021, 2022. I said this then. Did I call it or did I call it? If you will all recall, and I've done a number of different programs where I reminded you of this, when I said, when Roland Martin is sent back to come talk to real black society and to say all of this to real black America, he's not gonna name anything new. He's not going to say anything new. A bunch of you all are like, Jason, there's no way in the hell that they're going to come back and tell us that this penny, any irrelevant stuff they do in there, that this is what they're doing for us. There's no way in the hell they're going to do that, Jason. He said, Jason, they're going to have to pull out something else. This will be a damn laughing stock. They'll be embarrassed. They'll be running out the damn room. I said, no, they're going to come back and tell you this is exactly what they did for you. When you say, what about the tangibles? They're going to tell you, well, look at the HBCUs and, oh, look at the rate for prison phone calls. And, yeah, we did plenty for you. Those are your tangibles. Wait a minute, nigga, we said cut a check. Well, we reduced the cost of prison phone calls. That is your tangibles. Now get your ass over there and vote for us. But this is the same useless crap you've been doing. Well, if you don't vote for us, you won't even get that. So if I don't vote for you, I won't get useless stuff? Well, yeah. Yeah, for those of you who thought that they were actually at the last minute going to pull out something, please understand, that's the same thing they were saying when Obama was in office. Well, just you wait. They gonna do something for us. Just you wait. They're waiting till the last minute. They can't just talk about it for a year. They gonna have to spring it in real slick on the sly. At the very last minute, they gonna have to slide it on in real low key. But just you wait. At the last minute, that thing you talking about, they gonna go ahead and drop it on in there just at the last minute now. And I told you all, no, they're not. What they said from the beginning, that's all it's going to be. And here we are. And he's telling you, stop asking us for anything more. That penny in the ass garbage that didn't do anything for you, rising tide lifting all boats, disproportionate impact. We're going to help everybody, but you finally going to get a little slice of something. Yeah, that is what we did for you. And we're not going to do anything else. You just need to vote for us so you can get back the little useless stuff that we were claiming to get you before. I said it from the beginning, folks, and a lot of you were in disbelief. You're like, Jason, there's no way in the hell they could be this damn crazy and stupid. Yeah, this is what they're saying. This is it. This is all you're going to get. Now vote for us so we can continue giving you the useless crumbs that we were offering before. Ain't gonna be nothing new. That this is all we offering. Well, Trump isn't even offering this. Okay, what you're offering is worthless. Y'all niggas just stupid. Now, keep in mind that Roland Martin keeps telling the Democrats that they got to cut him a check. What? Now, keep in mind, when Roland Martin shows up, he keeps talking about, I've documented this now for a decade, that the Democrats need to spend more money on, quote, black advertising and, quote, black media. And every time he says black media, he means himself. Now, we've documented this for over a decade. Roland wants a check. Roland doesn't want reduced toll fares. He doesn't want you to reduce the cost of the tolls. He doesn't want you to reduce the taxes on his DoorDash or his Uber Eats. What Roland told Kamala Harris and the Democrats, they need to cut a check. Now, that's what he said they need to do for him in order for him to take them seriously. They got to cut a check. But when he comes to talk to us, we don't need no more checks. Now, he got to get one. The only thing he wants to discuss is the check he's going to get when he talks to Democrats. But when he talks to us about the Democrats, the check, all of a sudden, the check has disappeared. We don't need to discuss a check anymore. Just one for him. And what do you know? Kamala Harris cut him his check. Now he's here to tell all of us that we don't need one. He needs a check now that he got his, and the rest of y'all niggas, y'all don't need one. Steve Harvey got his reward, now he turned around to tell the rest of us we don't need one. While he was bragging there with that great big ass bushwhacker mustache of his, and Kamala Harris came up to the ranch. Okay, nigga, if she wasn't doing the strip tease, I wouldn't be bragging about that. And then D.L. Hughley, who went on DJ Vlad, as we've also documented here, bragging that the problem with black folks is that we don't believe in helping, doing something that's bigger than us and helping folk other than us. That he's gotten big enough that he understands the benefit of thinking bigger than himself and thinking outside of himself and helping other people. And that the rest of us are just too myopic and too blind to understand that we need to be bigger than just thinking about ourselves. We need to take care of everybody else. But he got his check. Don't you ever forget, you might sit up here and put on your little coon boots and start stomping too. Before you start stomping in your little coon boots, just keep in mind, by the way, he got his check. They already went over the campaign finance records and showed, oh, Roland got his check. He had to get on his show, and admit, yeah, he got his check. Now, he's not advocating the check for you, but you got to slide him some. Better get one of them Nigerians to open up the trunk of their Uber Eats and throw his ass in it. Get him up out of here. However, you might disagree. You just might. And in that event, the link to the Zoom is now open. And you are invited, implored, encouraged to give us a call. You're more than welcome to do so. If you've been instructed by my mods to call in, assuming you haven't been blocked already, it is time to shine. Hurry, step right up. In the meantime here, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo here. Shout out here to Ambrosia. Thank you very much for your support here tonight. We appreciate that. To my man, Mr. Richburg. To Keenan. Terrell Evans. Thank you very much for your support here tonight. Ashera Reborn, Flex, and everybody else here who's contributed for tonight's program. We appreciate that. This is one of those programs here that puts the data out there that reminds you of the things we've been saying here for over a decade to let you know that we're not Johnny-come-latelys. We've been talking about this before anybody else even understood that the subject matter was there. And we are reminding you that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. We've been on top of it since the beginning. Now, for those of you out there, I want to make this as a very brief reminder. For those of you out here, it's very great and wonderful that you can get the nations to recognize you. It's very nice and wonderful you can get that. But there are other things that folks do not understand. And I see people piling in on the Zoom right now. I want to go ahead and hit on this right quick because there are other dimensions to this that you all may not understand. There are other dimensions to this that you all may not get here. There are other dimensions I want to make sure that you keep in mind here. First and foremost, when you talk about the Native American casinos, you have to keep in mind this here from Mwekma, Native American casinos, the myths and the facts. Just to remind you here, when they say that, when they talk about Native Americans, myths and facts from November 2023, casino operations are all tax-free. This is only partially true. Native American land is outside the purview of the federal and state governments, so they cannot levy any taxes on tribal commercial activities, including the casinos. Let me say that again. So basically, you have a tax haven within United States borders. If you're a white person who can get yourself on the Dawes Rolls and claim to be a member of the tribe, then there is basically certain islands of tax-free operations to an extent, but tax-free islands within American soil. This is what the fight has been over. To consolidate the wealth in these areas and make sure that you are frozen out. Now, remember what I said there is for tribal commercial operations. So think of the casino as a business. It doesn't mean the folk who work there and whatnot, but the casino is a business. And there's a little bit more that goes into that. But basically, that's what it's saying. They cannot levy taxes on tribal commercial activities, including, not limited to, but including the casinos. That said, there are often revenue sharing compacts and other stipulations, because if you thought the white folk wasn't going to get paid, you're a dumbass, that see the casinos paying state or county authorities a percentage of their profits. This is to cover the cost of the external infrastructure outside the reservations that supports casino operations. What the hell? Salaries and other payments made to tribal members are taxable at the prevailing federal and state government rates. Players must pay tax on their winnings, even if they are tribal members. But folks, there's more than that. The 720 degrees of analysis you receive absolutely nowhere else, because everybody talks about the casinos. But did you know that there are other businesses that if you are Native American and recognized, why, there might be a loophole in it for you too? Well, Jason, businesses like what? Well, how about loaning money? What? Damn! Tribal lenders, this is from ProPublica. Tribal lenders say they can charge over 600% interest. Damn! These states stopped them. Online money lenders, and this is from January of this year, folks, from January of this year. This is not old information. Online lenders tied, so this means these are white folk setting these things up and using the Native Americans as their front people, because this has worked very well, because this is the whole point of it, using Native Americans as their front people, even if they're white Native Americans. Well, these interests now tied to Native American tribes argue that they aren't subject to state lending laws. But they backed away from operating in 6 states where attorneys have acted to protect consumers. I'm just going to go down here just a little bit, but they're talking about Governor Malley in Connecticut who wanted to stop them. They put up billboards saying, Governor Malley, don't take my dad's job. But Malley went ahead and dropped the hammer on them anyway. And it says the Oklahoma tribe, so a tribe in Oklahoma was trying to affect policies in Connecticut. The Oklahoma tribe, well, at least their backers were, was claiming sovereign immunity as it flouted Connecticut law, charging over 400% interest annually, though the state capped rates on such loans at 12%. Now, I wonder who in the hell would want to charge 400%. Who in the world is looking to circumvent things and say, okay, get behind the Native Americans and charge 400% interest? Who in the hell wants to do that? Well, we know it's not non-white interest, so we'll keep it there. Quote, we knew we could win, Malloy said. We knew they were harming people in Connecticut. Now listen to this. He said he came to believe that the sums Native American tribes were making were paltry compared to the money flowing to the outside investment organizations that had linked themselves to the tribes. Let me say it again. Governor Malloy said that he believes that the money that the Native American tribes in Oklahoma, the money that the tribes would actually get, was pennies compared to the amount that their outside investors were going to be getting. So America has tax havens within its borders, and there are white interests that have been using the title of a Native Americans as front people to circumvent those tax laws for their benefit, and they're caking off the money. Connecticut officials spent years fighting it in court. So you got that. Now down here, even as federal authorities have struggled to make an impact on this controversial form of lending, a handful of states have upended the notion that tribes' sovereign immunity must keep state regulators on the sidelines. The lesson, a little pushback can go a long way. In addition to Connecticut, 5 other states, Arkansas, New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia, have been remarkably effective at eliminating most tribal loans which are made online. A ProPublica review of the fine print on more than 80 tribal lending websites shows that the vast majority of tribal lenders now don't lend in those states. So, folks, if you thought that the profitability of claiming being a Native American, if you thought that the impact of the Black Creek thing was just limited to, well, get some schooling and some health care benefits, if you thought it was just limited to casinos, oh, hell no. Oh, no. Membership has its privileges. And these are just the ones I'm showing you. There are others. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Why is it that the bowling ball and the rest of these other people have not put this in a spotlight so that it's clearly in focus what the real terms here really are and what the real stakes here are? The stakes are casinos, money lending, the businesses that are on these lands. The stakes are way bigger than just, oh, I'm a citizen of the tribe. I'm a member of the tribe. The stakes are way higher than that. Because if we get involved, if some of us bring that hustle to these folk here and show them how the Freedmen and FBA get down with it, if we get involved, oh, things go into a whole nother level. Especially when you start pounding them about the reparations thing. We have the potential to take it to a whole new level, which means they have a vested interest in making sure we stay on the outside looking in. Let me go ahead and jump over here on Zoom with you right quick. Please remember, everybody who's on Zoom there, make sure you have your camera and your microphone turned on just so we don't have any trolling issues. YouTube will not see you, but just to make sure we don't have any trolling issues. All right, let me go ahead and see Zate. I got you here on Zoom. What's on your mind, Zate?
What's going on, brother Jason? Man, tonight was one of them nights, boy. It felt like when you ain't been in the church in a minute and you just look like the pastor speaking to your soul. But I just want to say a few things. One thing, old African proverb, the story of the lion never told, only the hunter. And in the wars, they used to always burn literature. Man, it's a reason why they gotta try to make us like a nameless tribe or people who don't come from nothing, because that way they can just make up any type of story and just hope we go along with it. But that's why the new black media, everybody's so dangerous right now, because we just opening our eyes to everything. And I want to say one more thing real quick. Dr. John Henry Clark, when his white teacher told him, hey, you don't got no history, and that started his journey down to Harlem so he can learn what's going on, he was told to go learn from your oppressors, then come back. Why is that? It's like you said, you got to put everything in context, because when you start putting everything in context, you realize we was here way longer than anybody set foot on this land. And as the world, man, we was like the oldest civilization out here.
If they tell you that your history only starts as slavery, this is like an insurance company attempting to limit their liability.
Yes, sir.
Well, no, your claim isn't 400 years old. Your claim is 120 years old. As a matter of fact, now that I broke it down to 120, as a matter of fact, to be totally honest, you ain't really got no claim, because we pretty much figured we settled all that up. And that's why you keep seeing them. Dr. John Henry Clark said that there's been a world war against our history. And everybody is in on it. Yes, so as black folk, this is what I want to remind the folks who may identify themselves as Creek and whatnot. I don't want that going to folks' heads. I have to keep hammering on this. Negroes love to sit up here and try to hyphenate themselves and elevate themselves and exotify themselves. And let's not use this as another way of making yourself exotic. Let's not sit up here and let that go to your head, because that's another way of disarming people. As soon as them folks, interracial access. What? Damn. Come on now. You think these other folk don't know that that's been an effective strategy? You've been held on the outside for so damn long. You can't wait to be acknowledged. Once you're acknowledged, now you start thinking black, but you start acting like one of them. When you're around us, you talk one way. Now that you think you got the end, next thing you know is, I'm not black, I'm mixed. I'm not black, I'm Hispanic. I'm Hispanic black. I'm black. I'm Blasian. Next thing you know, that starts coming up. So there's going to be a number of folks here. I got to remind you, don't let this little stuff here go to your head. Don't let that happen. Because right now, it's like, okay, we're so glad you think you got let in. That's wonderful. What you going to do with it? Because if the rest of the tribe ain't cool with it, you will still be legal aliens, even among your own tribe right there. Then they'll be coming back over here when, brother, we got to stick together. When the Creeks let you in, I don't know. So keep your eye on these folks here now who, if they think the tides turn, well, I found a place for some special benefits just for me. So, man, damn y'all niggas, I ain't no FBA nothing. I'm Black Creek. I've been said that. I'm on the rolls right here. Okay, we're gonna watch out to see who goes for that bait, brother. I'll let you have the last word.
Yes, sir. Look, I appreciate that. Like I said, man, tonight was one of them nights, man. You just speaking to the soul tonight. It was what we all need to hear, but at the same time, it's what you always been preaching. Shout out to everybody. Love the family. Love you, sir, for what you do.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Yeah, on top of everything else I've said here tonight, I just want to send another brief reminder. Bunch of folks out there, don't let this become your hyphenation moment where you start getting confused, in the words of our late brother Neely Fuller. Don't let this be one of those moments where you start getting confused. I ain't like the rest of y'all niggas. Oh, really? We're going to be watching out for the folks who start slipping that little sentiment into it. I'm not like the rest of you. Yeah, you've been looking for a little special dispensation for yourself. I'm not like the rest of y'all. I'm Creek. I'm Seminole. I ain't like the rest of you. See, I have a different lineage. Okay. We're going to have our eyes open to see if somebody starts kicking that. Oh, believe we will. Believe we will. There's some folks try it. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Onan up here on Zoom. Let me see if we can get Onan up here on Zoom. Onan, you're not there, dude. Folks, I don't know why. If you're calling on Zoom and whatnot, if you're sitting out there looking out the stoop and throwing out the garbage, this is not the time to be doing it. Okay, let me go ahead and see if we can get Superpower Media up here. Let's go ahead and see if we can get him. All right, Superpower Media, what's on your mind?
Brother Jason, man, you're speaking my topic tonight. I grew up in Oklahoma City, and I have history there. I can tell you that this has been going on for a long time about the blacks trying to get their rights back in the what I would say the money. It's been a 40-year money grab that the pretendians, the white people has been taking the money. And if you go to the casinos, because I started going to casinos early in the 90s, and man, I would always notice there was no Indians running the casinos. I said, oh, this looks strange. I said, nothing but white people. And it's still like that today. You go to any one of the casinos across the border, one on 35, one of the biggest ones in Oklahoma is WinStar. That's considered one of the biggest casinos in the United States because because of the land that it's on and somewhat. But yeah, you go to that casino, white people running it. You go to Durant, Oklahoma, white people running. You go in only casino that was really white owned was in the city. That was the racetrack. I can't remember the name of it, but it's right there in Oklahoma City. That was owned by the Gaylords. And that was really because everybody was trying to wonder, well, how they get the license to get it to not be able to pay you have to pay taxes if it's not on Indian land. And so they finagled their way was able to get the casino up and running. But a lot of the black towns that's in Oklahoma was built on Indian territory. like Bowie, Oklahoma, all of the black towns are like the black people that built Black Wall Street. Those was Indians. Those were black Indians that built Black Wall Street. All the black towns that was built in Oklahoma was built by the black Indians, because when they came through there from the Trail of Tears, that's where we landed at. And so that's why you have so many black towns in Oklahoma than you have anywhere else in the country. And man, they've been raping the black Indians forever in Oklahoma. And you can go to Oklahoma right now and you cannot find a large group of Indians nowhere. You got
you make a point about when you talk about Windstar. You talk about Windstar.
Yeah.
You got to talk about Yamava. For my folks out there in California, when you talk about large casinos, when people try to sit up here and sanitize California's black presence, try to make you think the black folk wasn't there either. Number one, the black folk wasn't there. Number two, wasn't no slavery. When they try to do them kind of things right there, brother, those are huge resorts. Those are huge pieces. Those are huge pieces of economic real estate. And I'm so glad you mentioned Windstar. So for those of you who have never been to Oklahoma for that, if you've never been to California for Yamava, y'all need to go check them out. If you have an opportunity to check them out, if you're coming down I-10 or whatever, you want to go check them out. You want to check that out so y'all can see what's going on, quiet is kept and hid from you. With them telling you that, by the way, you ain't one of them. Meanwhile, the former House Speaker, Kevin, not Kevin O'Leary, but Kevin from California. As a matter of fact, I spoke about him before. But I talked about him, about his kinfolk. Got some Native Americans Kevin McCarthy, that was his name, Kevin McCarthy. I talked about that article about his kinfolk. The media whispered about it, but they ain't really hammered him about it. They haven't really hammered Kevin McCarthy about, by the way, you got some kinfolk claim they Native Americans, bro. We checking the paperwork and they ain't looking legit. Okay, but they got their contracts. When you show up, you just get stopped at the door. You can't be. They tell you out the gate, you just can't be. Meanwhile, Kevin McCarthy's people, ain't nobody question that. Bro, I mean, when we talk about economic apartheid, this is what we talking about. Right here. And it's still alive and well. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, Jason, I mean, Black Wall Street could have been built a long time ago from all the casino money that they're making in Oklahoma right now, billions of dollars. We could have been rebuilt long time ago. And they've been, like I said, they've been raping the black people of their money and their heritage. And man, it's serious out there in Oklahoma, man. And another thing with Roland Martin, man, he wants his money. He can get his $350,000. He's happy. But he know that money is running out. Nobody's gonna cut him another check. So he know that he's gonna have to throw bricks. That's why he's throwing bricks at us, man. That's why he's coming out. He's coming unglued, because there is no more money coming toward him the next election, because the way they failed to bring the black vote he's done. So B1 Jason, keep bringing them, put the boots on their head, man, and keep it moving, man.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight, brother. We appreciate that. He makes a very good point. Folks. I want y'all to keep in mind, he makes a very good point about that. For those of you who may not be aware, for whatever reason, when you take a look at what's happened on Interstate 40, going through Tennessee and Kentucky, what's happening in those places right now, in my second documentary film, Gentrified, I was talking about that before anybody else was saying anything about it. They didn't understand it. They didn't know it. I was talking about Nashville, Tennessee. Davidson County knew what was going on. America didn't. And your old black media damn sure didn't talk about it. All the folks in New York were trying to figure out some other way to get through. So they went down to the Carolinas and whatnot. Yeah, but a bunch of them broke west a little bit and started going down into Tennessee and now into Kentucky. So you're starting to see where these folks have gotten themselves moving in those areas. Okay, but right now, and please understand, Tennessee has no state income tax. What? So a bunch of folks wanted to be near the beaches in the Carolinas and in Georgia, but then they figured out, wait a minute, Tennessee ain't got no income tax. Why are we fighting to go buy land? We sell your house in New York, trying to go down to Florida overpriced. We can go to the Carolinas for a damn beach, but hey, wait a minute, Tennessee ain't even got an income tax. So if I can't get into Florida with no income tax and it's overpriced, let me go to Tennessee. It's more affordable and they don't have an income tax. Sign me up. Now Tennessee done started blowing up all up and down Interstate 40, Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, Chattanooga. So folks have now started moving west. They went down to Arkansas. Believe it or not, they started to overprice Arkansas now. What? For those of you who don't know, Arkansas, folks are starting to complain that the prices in places like Little Rock are starting to rival the places that they left, like in Florida. I'm talking about Florida prices in Arkansas. So guess what? Now a bunch of them, they just kept it pushing and kept going west. They kept going west. Interstate 40 will do it for you. They kept going west, and then they go through Oklahoma now. I'm wrapping all this up in one program here tonight so you all can get all the information in one place, and these other folks are not going to sit up here and tie up into a nice, neat little bow for you. Now they're coming over to Oklahoma. They're looking for cheaper places. They're looking for places where either there's no income tax or a dollar go farther. And what I'm saying is that if we had not been attacked and terrorized and militarily brutalized, we would have all of that sitting right there today. So when you want to go build your Legends Tower or whatever, as the economics are now moving into Oklahoma in large amounts, yeah, they just made sure they dispossessed you first. They just made sure they dispossessed you first. All right, now you can bring the money in. Now that we done did like dope dealers and run the niggas up off the block, yeah, now you can bring the money on in. So please understand what the economics are doing. Let me go ahead and jump back over here on Zoom right quick. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Weston up here on Zoom. Okay, I'm going to see if I can get Weston up here on Zoom. Weston, I don't see you. So I'll give you about 5 seconds. There you go, Weston. All right, what's on your mind?
So I'm from Macon, Georgia. And you know, actually, we're in the process of getting Georgia's first national park, and it's where the Mogi National Mounds are located. And so they're actually doing a co-management agreement with the national park and the Muskogee Creek Nation. And it's been interesting because, you know, I work with the county. And there's always been a lot of questions about like what that looks like, and especially when you have the conversation about how Native Americans took Black people out to Oklahoma. And so, you know, locally we've been having conversations about, you know what I'm saying, what does justice look like? How do you bring in a national park that's supposed to bring in all these millions of people, and then what does that do to the community? Macon's a majority Black city. But we've only had one mayor in the history of our city, and now they're talking about bringing a national park to what's considered East Macon, a majority Black community, and we can kind of see the implications and the impact of what that looks like, especially when you talk about the money that can be generated from being a national park and all the types of people that will move and come to Macon once that designation happens. It's been something that, you know, we've been battling with here locally to kind of figure out, you know, where does the equity come in? How do we get some off of that? You know, and it's interesting the fact that they had the previous court case that, you know, denied Black people.
Well, you know, there's a bunch of places there in Georgia that's going to matter for. So for Macon, Augusta, there's a number of places. Let me show you all something here right quick that dovetails off what the brother is talking about, because I want y'all to see this for yourselves. This is from the Wall Street Journal, and I try to keep on top of these things, but from the Wall Street Journal, Atlanta's growth streak has come to an end. So they're checking the numbers there in Atlanta. And what they're saying is that, yeah, that big heavy boom that Atlanta has experienced for the last 3 decades, the numbers are going soft over there now. Now it's down to a few thousand. So they're looking at other areas now. So other areas out I-20 and other areas, Macon and Valdosta, some of these other places now, they're looking at doing things with them. They're looking at how they can expand that. So that Atlanta thing there, they're looking at how they can spread that out in other areas. So they're staking out the real estate now that they haven't stolen completely. They're staking all that out now. So what you're saying is absolutely true. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also a place in East Macon that the county's looking at giving and ceding land to them so that they can build a casino, do the things that we typically see in, like, especially in the city where, the median household income is, less than $30,000. Like the implications of that is going to be crazy. And I appreciate Black America's Anchorman and this program with covering this because, as a small city, you always wonder if people see what's going to happen to you. And I'm just glad that you're covering this topic. So thank you.
I want you all to remember something. Everything is not about making an urban jungle. We've grown accustomed to the idea of so-called gentrification and yippieization, where and the thing that we looked for, and I covered this in my first documentary film, 7 a.m. When you see the white women show up with their little poodle dogs, when you see the white women jogging, as soon as you get a yoga studio or a Panera Bread, there goes the neighborhood. Okay, some of these other folks have figured out a new way to handle that. In Georgia right now, what they're doing with y'all is these bike trails. So everything you want to do, they want to build big ass bike trails. And we've already covered that. They got one that's a financial boondoggle that I really think is just a big money laundering thing. I really think it is. With as long as that's been going on and whatnot with the old train track thing that they've had going through there for years, I really think that's just a big trails. Yeah, I think that's just a big trails. I really do think that's just a big money laundering scheme. I really, really do. I think they just really. I think it's just funneling a bunch of money through, so a bunch of folks are stealing a bunch of money, and they'll eventually finish it after everybody done stole as much money from it as they can get. But that's the way that they're doing it with you all. It's not chicks with poodle dogs. The strategy they're using now is, okay, make a bike. Yeah, the belt line. Make a bike trail. Yep. Make a bike trail. And when you talk about, we're going to put in the national park or this, that, and the other. Okay, build parks and retention ponds. And you see a lot of that in like Florida. So yep. Georgia has kind of been using a hybrid of that strategy. And these are amenities that, technically speaking, don't really play for black folk like that because they put us in urban areas. So this is the strategy they're using with you all. It's not like New York where everything needs to be walkable within 2 blocks. And it's not going to necessarily be like in some of these other places where they go jogging. It's going to be more like walking trails, hiking trails, so-called bike trails. That's the gentrification strategy and the colonization strategy they're going to be using for you all in Georgia. I'm seeing this all over the place with that. So very clearly they didn't put their heads together and said, this is the way to do it in Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. So Georgia, you got your heads up. For other folks, I'm not saying they don't do those other things as well, because you're going to have a little shopping center there, You're going to have some little shopping center there with some overpriced food or something. But the bike trail thing and stuff like that in Georgia, yeah. Yeah, and if lineage can be used against you or some way, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Okay, let me go ahead and see if I can get to here. I don't know who this is. Somebody's got some kanji letters here for MacBook. Let me figure out who that is. All right, MacBook, we got you here on Zoom. What's on your mind, brother?
What's going on, brother Jason Black? This is Nasir.
All right, brother Nasir, what's on your mind?
Not much. Excellent program as always. You got it firing on all cylinders. I got a question when it comes to Roland Jr. Martin. When it comes to him in this whole prison phone call situation, like he knows it's garbage, right? We know it's garbage. These are not tangibles, right? And when we look at the Pew Research, Brookings, I think it was, they came up with some studies that show clear undisputable evidence that Black Americans, well, the research is based on Black Americans. In terms of FBA, I don't know how much percentage of that study is FBA or not. Regardless, that economics is our focus. That there's a new tide, there's a new day, and economics is our focus. So my question to you, brother, is why do the Democrats put bad investment after investment into an incompetent media class? What is the point of this?
Well, first of all, remember, when you have "I'm white and I say so," you don't have to be the smartest people in the room. That's the first thing. So the big fallacy has been that we're up against this genius brain trust, and these are just megalomaniacal geniuses that are just so difficult to overcome intellectually. That's a lie. That's not true. So what they are doing is just utilizing generational wealth, and they're scheming, but they're not the smartest people in the room. This is the final frontier. This is the final barrier right here, the economics. This is the whole enchilada. This is all the marbles right here. Malcolm X said it. They can give up their schools. They can give up their jobs, but they can give up their schools. They can give up their houses. They can build new ones of those, but can they give up their jobs, the economics, the way that they gave up their schools and their houses? That the economics is what builds everything else. Now you come in talking about that. We can't give that up. So everything needs to be mobilized around, okay, look, how long can we stall these niggas? How long can we stall them? Let's use red herrings, divide and conquer, gender warring, light skin privilege, whatever it is. All we can do is stall them now because they're talking about the heart of the subject. And if we can't stop them, can we stall them? And send out anything. Brother, like I'm saying is that he might not be a perfect tool. He's the only one they got. The alternative is to do nothing. So, yeah, nobody said he was a great tool, but you got to use the tools you got, not the tools you wish you had. What did Donald Rumsfeld say when he ran us into Iraq? You go to war with the army you have, not the one you wish you had.
Wish you had, right.
Well, these are the operatives they got, because the ones they wish they had are over here telling folks reparations and cut the check. We're the ones they wish they had. Yeah, but we're on the other side. So take your operatives you got, flush them with as much cash as you can. Van Jones, give them as much cash as you can. Put them on TV, put them on radio. Cross your fingers and hope for the damn best, because the alternative is apocalyptic.
All right, that was my only question today, brother. Thank you for all you do, and be one to you and the family.
Be one, brother. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Now, yeah, folks, I mean, it really is that simple. These are not geniuses. They're not geniuses. They're not a brain trust. They have the little groups they put together, but when I get on them, next thing you know, it's like, damn, Jason just broke it down like that. They're not geniuses. Not on that level. They're not Einsteins. They're petty schemers. They're cunning, but they're not geniuses. And these are the operatives that they have. And now you're striking at the heart of the matter. All right, well, send this dummy out there. Give him as much money as you can and send this dummy out there and hope we can stall. Can we stall through one more election cycle? Can we stall them for one more year? Can you hold those percentage points for just 6 more months, 6 more weeks? It's a game of inches now. Let me go ahead and see if we can get OGK Network up here on Zoom. What's on your mind, OGK?
Yeah, you brought up a very good point on the reservations, how they are kind of like, in a way, tax havens. I was looking on YouTube on a channel, and it was a documentary on the Union Bank of Switzerland, and how basically it's come from a tradition of Switzerland being basically the bank for the elites, basically. Then they went to Luxembourg, how Luxembourg, a tiny little nation within the European Union, somehow positioned itself to basically be, because they have no real resources in Luxembourg, but they position themselves to be basically the banking trust for the elites of the European Union to where it is in itself most likely the richest country within the European Union. Now you look at some of these Indian reservations out here and all the policies, how they're basically set up in a way to be like a Cayman Island or a Switzerland. You know, Jason, if you get us to be the members of some of them reservations, imagine, if you will, us establishing a UBS-style bank on those reservations. And then you look at somewhere, it's like, look at Arizona. Damn near half the damn state is damn near Navajo Nation. I know, I've driven Arizona.
Wonderful idea in some regards there, though it wouldn't work on American soil because you would be subject to American banking regulations. So their ability to peer into everything, you'd be held to that. Yes, the Native Americans have reservations, but remember, those reservations are subject to the American government, which is why you have a Department of the Interior. So in reality, and that's part of the case. I didn't get to play that on Roland Martin's program there, but what the attorney also went on to say was that, by the way, the treaties and whatnot are subjugated by the United States Constitution. So that's the supreme law of the land, and all treaties are subservient to the supreme law of the land. The supreme law of the land is not the treaties. The supreme law of the land is the Constitution, and any of your agreements, including with Native Americans, are subject to the Constitution, which was the argument that he made to them when he went back this time. And that's why that was prevalent. So you wouldn't be able to get that kind of Switzerland thing to work because you're going to have to be part of the American banking system, and you would be directly subjected to it here, which is not the situation that they have in Switzerland. That's not the situation they have in the Cayman Islands. You also make a very good point, though, about Switzerland. I'm glad that you said that because Switzerland was agreed upon. Switzerland did not become the way it is by accident. If you've seen any documentary about that if they did half their work of salt, it would make it clear. No, that was agreed to. Just like the hands-off, they had a hands-off policy in Asia, but a hands-on policy in Africa when it came to colonialization. Asia was hands-off. Africa was all hands-on. Well, that was something that they agreed to. The European colonial powers agreed, okay, here in Africa, anything goes. In Asia, wait a minute now, we got the traffic lights over here in Switzerland, and this is our little opaque money bank that is deliberately set up to be opaque, unseeable, non-transparent for everybody else. And Switzerland doesn't work if you're not filthy rich. There's the other issue. You got $100,000 or $500,000 in your retirement account. Switzerland doesn't really work for you. If you have 100 million, yes, Switzerland works for you. The Caymans, if you don't have a few million, the Caymans don't work for you. So even if you're, quote, upper middle income, the Caymans don't really, anybody go talk to any CPA folks, that's not really going to work for you. But if you got millions, now the Caymans work for you. If you're a multinational corporation and you got to get that shell company game popping, now the Caymans work for you. So the point you're making is that there's a specific population of people who've been able to utilize these banking systems, and particularly these opaque ones, in places like Switzerland and the Caymans. Those were set up. Switzerland was set up to be open for white interests. The Caymans was set up to be dominated by white interests. So it's basically like a satellite. It's not really a proper one. It's more like a satellite one. Switzerland was made to work with the government, specifically the European ones, and the Caymans more under the American ones for the American corporations. But it's actually subjected by them, whereas Switzerland is more of a government. So there's some differences there, which are quite fascinating, but that's the reason, that's my down and dirty explanation of why you couldn't replicate that here. Now, what you can do is whoever has sway with the tribes. The reason why the Indian casinos work, and I guess I might as well go ahead and do it anyway. The reason why the Native American casinos work is because basically those belong to the tribe. If you're recognized by the federal government, the tribe, well, the casinos belong to the tribe. So if you can thread that needle, well, now all those other doors we're referring to, that opens up to you now. If you can thread that one. So that's why keeping you out all the way has been so important. And the folk that you're going to, okay, first you got to get recognized, but all these decisions that we're talking about, those were all made by the leaders of the tribes. So when they make that decision in the interest of the tribe, now they're recognized, because they're recognized, now they can make those decisions that comes under those protections. Well, some of the tax benefits come from and whatnot. So that's why you got to work your way up that ladder to go do that. So there are other things you could do. You'll have to build something else. The casinos are not really part of the banking system. So you can make an enterprise work, but you're going to have to choose something different. I get the psychology you're using, and the psychology is sound. Although even there, just remember, the more profitable you are, the more, like I said, the state governments and whatnot are going to demand a kickback on that. So they're the ones who authorize and allow the Native American casinos. So it's not like they just say, hey, we're sovereign, we're going to do what we do. That's not what's actually happened. So, but you will definitely have some latitude that you didn't have before. Now, there's the real thing about it. You're going to have some latitudes that you don't currently have right now.
Okay, well that explains why they have the payday loan things going on.
Right, it makes it easier. Think of it like deregulating your business. Think of it in those terms. You're not outside the law, but you certainly circumvented a lot of regulations. Think of it in those terms. You're not unregulated, but you certainly reduced your regulations.
Okay, I get it now. That's why they have it there, because it's kind of like it's a loophole in the situation. Yeah,
you're dealing with a different government.
Yeah,
Native Americans are a different government, so getting things started with them is one thing. Now, the complication comes when you want to move outside of their confines. Yeah, you're on a reservation, but now you want to do business in Connecticut, in Arizona, in Oklahoma. Okay, now that's where it gets a little bit sticky. So it makes it easier to start. And if you can get the states to not do a bunch of pushing back, yeah, you can actually make some things pop, depending on what it is.
You made a good observation too with Atlanta, Jason, when you said that they're trying to move out. Yeah, because I've always looked at a lot of the cities in Georgia very strategically. Let's say, for instance, Savannah. People don't talk about Savannah. Savannah's right there on the coast, and it's a port city. You know, that would be a prime example of
we would be here all night talking about Savannah. We'd be here all night talking about, no, that's a multi-billion-dollar project they're doing down there as far as expanding that port, making it deeper so you can take on bigger boats. The boardwalk, the river walk they put there. Anybody who hasn't been to Savannah and check that out, I mean, the hotels are built up now. They're doing it on one side, now on the other. So yeah, Savannah is another one that's a huge project and a lot going on there. So once again, this is why I say, if we had a damn black legal class, and by the way, going to Savannah, right, Savannah's crazy in the summertime. So anybody who hasn't been in the summertime, this is not the time to go, unless you want to be in a bunch of crowded streets. But other than that, go in the wintertime or go in the fall when there's not so many folk there, so you can actually be there by yourself and you can actually move around and look around and see what they've done. It's actually rather beautiful. But my whole thing is, yeah, that's supposed to belong to us too. Very nice you put up the statues of the black family down there. That's real cute. Cut the check. That's real cute, talking about slavery and stuff down there. Okay, I heard that. Cut the check. Hey, Hilton, with your hotels down here, we need to discuss your bill. On account of the fact you're building on our riverfront down here, we need to discuss that bill. That's the attitude we're supposed to have about it. We're not going to stop you from building that hotel. You can have the hotel. We just need you to understand right now, everybody got to pay their bill. So when you're on that, that's the way that goes. I'll let you have the last word.
Well, I'm glad that that the case was won. I do feel that if directly, indirectly, it could help our claim. Hopefully, we can win more cases in such a manner. But when it comes to the sense of attacking reparations, we're going to have to make it more so a situation where we're attacking way more head on with a lot of things. And it would be a lot easier, Jason, if we did have a competent legal class like the Jews have to do this. But at the end of the day, like Kimakaba said, we're going to get our reparations. We just got to press forward, and persistence wins at the end of the day. So that will be
this case right here, to anybody who doubts y'all niggas ain't gonna get reparations. this case right here is proof positive. Yeah, we will. Everybody doubting. It's like, okay, you'll look dummy in the end. When that's going to happen, it's going to happen when we get done. But this case right here shows you, yes, slowly but surely, you see it's happening. Anybody looking at this can see, yeah, that's not an unrealistic thing. It's not unrealistic. If the Native American governments can do that, yeah, you can get it to happen elsewhere too. So, yeah, it's not fantasy. It really isn't. This case shows you, oh, it's a lot more realistic than folks want to give it credit for being. Let me go ahead and jump over here to Jared. Here on Zoom. Let me get Jared up here. Jared, I'll give you a few moments here. Jared might have walked away from his phone. He might have walked away from his phone there for a minute to run down the Panera Bread. Not really sure if that's the case. Jared, I can give you a couple more seconds here. I don't know what's going on, but Jared, I don't see you. Okay, Jared must have stepped out of the house for a little bit there. So Jared, see about giving us a call back next week, I suppose. Let me go ahead and see if we can get AT up here on Zoom right quick. Let me grab AT. There you go. AT, unmute yourself. What's on your mind?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, my name is AT, calling from Charleston by way of Nigeria. So it was funny you're talking about all these casinos and all this Indian land. In Orangeburg, South Carolina, which sits smack dab in the middle of Jim Clyburn's district, they're proposing a casino and resort right off 95. And I was thinking to myself, why would they put a casino right off 95 in Orangeburg? And it made sense. What if Jim Clyburn is trying to position himself to get that casino there so he can get his family in position to, rule that district and somehow get kickbacks from the proceeds from that casino that they're proposing?
Yeah, I mean, in the case of Jim Clyburn, bruh, like I say, he's definitely the folks who have been in the back pocket of these people for so long. They made sure they're straight about that, and they're going to continue to do so. So in that district, and the one I'm really looking for is that damn Lowe's Resort on the waterfront down there. That's the one I'm watching. I don't think they're done with it yet. It's been a couple years. I don't think they're finished with that monster yet.
No, they're not done with that one yet. And I got another thing for you. Look this up. It's called Magnolia Landing. It's a multi-billion-dollar development right in that same area. Magnolia Landing is one of those huge live, work, play situations that they're trying to do down there in Charleston. Magnolia Landing is that thing is. You thought the Lowe's Hotel was something? That's like hold my beer, bro. I'm telling you, it's something different.
Okay,
Magnolia Landing.
Magnolia Landing. I'll have to check that out because, like I say, dude, Quiet just kept, Charleston is blowing up. It's booming. Anybody who ain't been there, it's traffic is crazy. It really, really is. So yeah, I can believe that. I wasn't aware about what you're referring to there because I haven't been there in a minute. But yeah, when I saw the Lowe's thing, brother, that's a wrap. That's a wrap right there. That when you see that, that's a wrap. So I can believe you're going to have a number of those showing up now. And I don't know what the end game is or what the master plan is necessarily, but I would not be surprised if that whole area down there, I could see it looking like Myrtle Beach. I could literally see that happening.
Yeah, like I said, Magnolia Landing, the proposed renderings and all that for that Trump Lowe's Hotel build out that you're referring to in some of your previous broadcasts. So I just let you and your viewers just keep the eye on that because I have a sneaky suspicion that some of that land that they're building that on once belonged to Black people. So like I said, if we had a legal class, who knows if they would even be allowed to even build on that land or even, cut the check. So
thank you very much, brother. We appreciate that. I have to check into that. It's called the Cooper. The hotel I was referring to there is called the Cooper. So yeah, because I'm on the website right now to check and see. I'm checking to see whether or not even allows you to do anything with it just yet. But the Cooper there in Charleston. So, like I say, that thing is a monster. It really, really is. And this is what these folks are doing. This is what these folks are doing. And like I say, that's right there. Yeah, anybody who's been down there by the Cooper where it is now, Riverview Inn, Harbor Inn, the lady there, they got the Gullah Geechee down there. I talked to her and chopped it up for her when I was there. And I'm just like, by the way, she's literally right across the street from a multi-billion-dollar development right across the street. Literally right across the street. You damn right we better get ourselves recognized to be exempt from that kind of stuff right there. They didn't set up here and held their boots on your neck, and then they're going to tell you, oh, you can't afford to be here. You can't afford to be here, but they've handcuffed and strapped you. Oh, well, you didn't keep up economically. Well, yeah, when you handcuffed me and cut my legs off and stuff, yeah, it made it kind of hard to walk after you cut my legs off. Oh, well, we're building the Cooper now. This property taxes, land values have gone up. So this is what the world you got going on. I'm saying it's like that. I could see it looking like that. I could see it looking like, that whole area there for the river in Chicago going out to the lake, right there where the Trump International is. Everybody's trying to do their own version of these things. It'll at least look like Savannah, though they don't have a resort or a hotel that big in Savannah, but they got some older structures there where Market Street is in Charleston. They got some older structures there. So all that kind of reminds me of San Francisco. So it's kind of going to be, from what they're doing, it's going to be like a mix between San Francisco and Atlanta. You're going to have a lot of huge, big new structures and a bunch of old construction, but it's older and it's all walkable. So driving down the streets traffic is going to be a nightmare. I don't know where the hell you're going to park when that thing finally does open. Traffic is going to be nightmarish. Oh, you think traffic is bad now? Traffic is going to be a nightmare. The street's like 2 lanes. A multi-billion-dollar resort. So y'all are going to remember that as the good old days right now. When that thing is finally open and folks start coming through there to fill that thing up, it's going to be nonstop traffic, man. Nonstop. Yeah, and it's below waterline down there, so I don't know how they're going to handle flooding. I just don't. Oh, well, I guess they'll figure it out. Then again, they got some idea. I guess we'll see what happens when they do. I do know one thing, this effort, this campaign to disinherit our people on these things right here and there. Everybody else has done got caked off, and then they tell us what's not going to be. No, what you've learned from this issue with the Creek Freedmen is that the folks who tell you reparations is impossible and there's no progress being made and the way things are is the way it's always going to be, they are a big fat lie. They are a big fat lie, but they definitely want you to believe that. Because they can see, no, it's not going to stay like this forever. Jason, what makes y'all think y'all going to get reparations? Because we're going to get it. When are you going to get it? When we receive it. How long will that be? As long as it takes. We'll be here. We'll be here. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. We'll go ahead and wrap it up here tonight. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Shout out here to my man, Tahuti. Thank you very much for your support tonight. To my man, Walter, to Wesley, Glennis, and everybody else here who supported tonight's program. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend, holidays, some days in between. We are the Black Media. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. You have been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com. Check out our groundbreaking, best-selling documentary work, blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's program, live or recorded. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, The Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.